Welcome to NAB Day 2. Leo Laporte here on the TWiT stage at the National Association of Broadcasters show. I'm supposed to call it NAB Show. And with me at the NAB Show, once again, Kirk Harnack, the host of This Week in Radio Tech. He's Vice President of International Worldwide Marketing and Sales for Telos. Did I get that right?
Something like that.
I added words. But
I think Hoo-Ha and Pumbaa go in there somewhere.
He's the Grand Poobah at Telos Corporation. Great to have you. Everywhere I go, as I meet people going walking around, everybody knows Kirk Harnack. You're a legend.
Yeah. Post office does too.
There's a sign. I saw a sign. It was incredible. Wanted, dead or alive. So, day 2, you feeling good?
I am, actually.
Yeah?
We had a great day 1.
Good.
I left here to a crowd at the Telos booth.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
They're all looking at the Axia? What are they?
Yeah. Well,
You're Mr. Axia.
You know, we'll talk about it tomorrow on the TWiT program, but we've got a guy named Leif Clayson who's well known in audio processing circles. Very terrifically interesting guy. He's like half Swiss, half Jamaican, and he lives in Thailand.
Wow.
Yeah, but he's like this processing god. Works for us now.
We need that.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is, and I know as a radio broadcaster, every radio broadcaster, they're going to flock to this guy because it's a black art. Just tweak that knob there and that, and I've spent a lot of time messing around. Now, fortunately, we have that great Omnia 1 in there, and that just I don't have to worry.
Yeah.
You set it up beautifully.
In fact, well, Corny really tweaked it. And I rode in the cab with him yesterday.
Well, thank him.
And yeah, I did. And he said, "How are they liking that thing?" I said, "Well, they haven't complained."
Well, let me put it this way.
My normal voice sounds like this. And thanks to the incredible Heil PR40 and the Omnia 1 processor,
I sound like this in a world where Kirk Harnack rules. So, anyways.
So it's been good. A lot of booth traffic, and we're seeing people, of course, from all over the world, and more.
This is very much an international show.
The travel had been curtailed, and yet we're seeing a lot of people.
Yeah, everywhere, coming from all over.
Yeah,
it's really a lot of fun. Also joining us, of course, Scott Wilkinson, our host for Home Theater Geeks. We had a great time yesterday.
We had a great time
Panasonic,
yesterday.
Sony, JVC. We talked to all the guys. And, of course, your question, which was the question of the day, is how does this professional gear impact consumers down the road? How does it trickle down?
That's exactly right. And we got some very interesting responses to that.
Yeah. And it's a Sony guy. I love Bob.
Yeah,
what a
Bob.
Character he is. He said, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't trickle down. But
in fact, it does.
Yeah, of course it. But when you're looking at a $22,000 OLED, 17-inch OLED display,
yep,
it might be a while before we see a 40-inch in the house.
True enough. Now today, I'm going back over to Panasonic, where they have a new reference plasma monitor, professional monitor, which I do expect to trickle down into. Now, SK, the CTO of Panasonic yesterday, was a little cagey on that trickle-down point as well.
Yeah.
But we know that it happens.
Of course it does.
So
they don't want, I think the message, you remember, they're at the professionals show. They don't want to tell the professionals, oh, yeah, you'll be able to buy this in 5 years for 1/10 the cost.
Right.
That's not
That's
in
not what
their
they want to
interest.
hear. Right.
But we will.
We will.
I think it's obvious.
That's exactly right. And so I'm looking forward to seeing this new professional broadcast monitor in plasma, which I hear is really remarkable. It's kind of in a secret room upstairs.
You know, unlike CES, which really was this January a 3D show, there are 3D cameras here. There are 3D displays, but it doesn't dominate this show the way that it dominated CES.
I'm not sure I would agree with that. I mean, there's the 3D pavilion, of course. You actually stopped there on our way back yesterday.
I was blinded by the light. There's 2 of everything.
But a lot of the sessions are on 3D.
Yeah.
I attended, basically yesterday for me was all 3D.
Yeah.
So James Cameron, of course, did his
well, but he
keynote.
hedged, too, because he announced a partnership with Vince Pace. They're going to make a company that will make cameras and systems that will allow filmmakers to shoot in 3D. And I think that the "and" is kind of something to be underscored.
Yes, you are correct.
4K, 60 frames a second. In other words, more vivid, realistic 2D. And that's the thing I've been lobbying for. And we do see quite a... Now, you admit, you're impressed by the number of 4K displays we're seeing.
I am.
A lot of them.
A lot of them. And this is going to be a coming trend, no question about it.
Yeah. And every company, including Sony, doing 4K cameras, responding to Red and similar cameras and saying, we can do that.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And we saw a 4K projector in the content theater yesterday. I did. We saw some clips from Carmen in 3D. They shot an opera in 3D with cameras on the stage. It was incredible.
Wow.
I mean, it looked really good.
When the fat lady sang, she was in your
They said they wanted to get cameras close to the actors because they wanted that roundness of 3D.
of something. No, but see, I might be interested in that, actually. I think
it was beautiful.
And I have to say that now that, look, here we are, a streaming broadcaster. Yes, admittedly, the official streaming partner of the National Association of Broadcasters show, but still a streaming, internet, down market stuff. And we're doing, I mean, if you look at our displays here, a lot of people came up to me and said, "Do you look this good in the studio?" And I said, "Yeah, if only you could see this." But no, we're actually in a high def for the first time because we're not only using these high def cameras from JVC, very affordable, consumer grade cameras, but the TriCaster HD 850 from New Tech that we're using to switch this. This is our first time we've really done everything from soup to nuts in high def. So now, if you've got people like me, low lifes like me in super clear high def. It's clear that the pros must have moved quite a bit farther on,
and they've moved to 4K.
Yeah,
it's pretty clear. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
And even though I've always maintained that for the consumer anyway, 4K doesn't make that much difference unless you have got a really big screen or you're sitting really, really close.
Yeah.
A couple of the people we talked to yesterday begged to differ.
Oh yeah, the sound. Bob brought us over to what was it, 45-inch, 50-inch? No, was it Bob?
No,
or was it JVC.
Dave at JVC brought us over to a 45 or 50-inch
4K.
4K, and
great.
It looked fantastic.
And then right next to it, a broadcast reference monitor, 4K reference monitor that must have been 19 or 20 inches.
Yeah.
It looked like you were looking through a window.
It's true.
It does make a difference.
It does. I have to say I've been convinced that.
I would say 4K is to HD as HD is to S. Well, maybe not such a big jump, but it's a noticeable jump.
It's absolutely a noticeable jump. No question about it.
It's clearer, crisper, more refined.
And you can get closer to it and read street signs.
Right. I'm not sure you'd want to, but I guess you could.
you could. Yeah, exactly.
This brings back 5 years ago, 4, 5, 6 years ago, I was here at the NAB show and wandering around a bit, and there was the first 4K camera and display going on. I want to say it was NEC, but it may have been somebody else.
Could have been. I don't know. I don't think they make cameras.
This was really special. There was like extra air conditioning for the equipment,
right?
and there was a line to see it, and it was the data rate was like 250 megabits per second to do this. They had a camera outside in the parking lot here at the convention center. You could read the license plates and the states. And home. And now you're saying it's all over the place.
It's everywhere.
It is all over the place.
150-inch display at the Sony or Panasonic booth.
4K.
4K display.
Okay. Now that's been around for a couple of years.
Yeah, they show it every year.
But
I like
it's
to
so
go
impressive.
visit it.
It's so impressive.
It really is.
I got a picture of it yesterday with a girl standing next to it, and it's just like, man,
which is real.
Yeah, which is real.
Well, you're a weather guy, Kirk, and I know you must have. I went over to the AccuWeather booth, and they were doing something pretty cool. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
So they have the idea, and I was interested in this because I think we could use it. Is that you have one host in one city, another host in another city. They're both on what? Well, they're not on green screen because they're standing in front of a projection of the other host and a simulated set between them. And when you see the output of it, it looks like there's two people in the same place. They can manipulate the screen, so you could say, like do the Minority Report stuff. But you could be you could be anywhere, and I thought that was very interesting.
I see more meteorologists out of a job.
Yeah,
they'll be good news? More centralized than ever before.
Well, yeah. So it's AccuWeather and Ultimat were doing it, and so the woman is at the Ultimat booth, because Ultimat makes those green screen things. And then the weatherman was at the AccuWeather booth. It was amazing. It was uncanny to see the final output, which looks like they're talking to each other. They're interacting with each other. They can throw virtual objects at each other.
And they could do this over distance across a WAN,
That's
maybe someday across public internet. So someday we'll be talking about the clouds in the cloud.
Well, the reason I'm interested is because we have hosts all over. Right now, what we do is we put them on a screen, on a Skype screen next to me. But I'd love it if they could be standing there.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we're getting very close to that time. Yeah. Wow. Hey, let's introduce our guest. I know you were talking before the show began. Jason Power is here. He's Senior Director of Marketing broadcast at Dolby Corporation. It's great to see you.
Great to be here.
You're based at that great Dolby facility in San Francisco. I've been in there many times. What a great place that is. The theater's in there. And
yeah, we have a beautiful facility. It's pretty tough going to work in the morning knowing that you have a cinema right there that you can go and hide away in.
Yeah. I met Ray Dolby the other day, and what an amazing fellow he is. So what is Dolby doing for broadcast?
So over the last decade, as HD has started up first here in the US and then around the world, we've been helping broadcasters get on air and make sure that the sound lives up to that glorious HD picture.
People forget that sound is as important, if not more important, in some respects.
Of course,
the picture.
Of course, it's more important.
Well, but I agree with you. And I'm a sound focused, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
You could have a picture that's poor quality or low frame rate, but and you can live with it if the sound's okay. But if the sound's bad, forget it. I don't care how good the picture is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, an experience without video is called radio. An experience without audio is called nothing. You need the audio there for stuff to be intelligible.
Yeah. Does Dolby make special devices for television broadcasters to give them better sound? What is it that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the core audio technology that's used to deliver the audio for high definition television here in the US and increasingly around the world. So as HD has started up, broadcasters have been using that Dolby Digital technology extensively.
Right.
And what we're showing people here is actually our latest generation technology, Dolby Digital Plus, which is enabling, as video switches over to MPEG-4 rather than MPEG-2 and takes these entertainment services to whole new places and whole new devices. We're showing how Dolby Digital Plus enables a great audio experience right the way across how you're experiencing that content.
Scott, do you need to have a Dolby decoder in your home theater to get this quality sound?
Yes, absolutely. But it's
more and more
so
people,
common.
everybody does now. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, certainly everybody has, virtually all devices that decode audio in any way.
First thing you do is Dolby.
Is Dolby Digital.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about Dolby Digital Plus, which, if I'm not mistaken, provides a higher quality sound experience.
Do I need to buy a new decoder?
Well, actually, most of the TVs and increasingly set-top boxes that are being sold today have that technology inside. So, we've hit over 200 million devices shipped with that technology inside. It's a standard feature of Blu-ray players. It's in TVs from all of the top 10 manufacturers. So, increasingly, you're going to see that Dolby Digital Plus logo on the front of the devices that you're buying.
Now, will a standard Dolby Digital decoder decode Dolby Digital Plus bitstream? Is it backward compatible in that way?
Yeah, it's totally backward compatible with home cinemas that people already have. So if you have an AVR, just hook it up with the SPDIF or the HDMI connection, and you're going to find that works just fine.
You won't hear the added benefit of Dolby Digital Plus. You'll hear the Dolby Digital, what might be called core or basic system, right?
Absolutely, but so at least you have that core compatibility. But if you really want to go to some of the added benefits, so for example 7.1 surround sound, then a new AVR is going to give you that.
So Plus gives you 7.1. What else?
So yeah, so it gives you 7.1 and enables the same 7.1 experience that you're now starting to get in the theater.
I was so shocked to learn, Scott told me this, how few theaters have 7.1 sound. Movies have 7.1 sound.
Exactly. There's only a few movies that have 7.1 sound. Toy Story 3 was the first, and we're talking native 7.1.
As opposed to simulated or generated.
Right.
Yeah.
Because a lot of DVDs, or Blu-rays I should say, have 7.1 soundtracks.
They have those extra channels.
But they have the extra channels derived from the 5.1.
Which shouldn't be deprecated, because with computer modeling we could do a pretty good job.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. But there's a difference between derived 7.1 and native 7.1. Just as there's a difference between converted 2D to 3D as there is native 3D.
Right.
And but what's been amazing over the last really kind of 9 months since Toy Story 3 is to see the momentum that's coming with those 7.1 titles. It really seems like content creators, particularly as they make these new 3D titles, is they're looking for that added dimension in audio. It
kind of goes with it, doesn't it? If
right,
you're going to have a three-dimensional picture, you want to have a fully dimensional soundstage around you.
Absolutely. I mean, you want, as that object flies out of the screen, you want the sound to whistle past your ear.
Right.
As you're immersed in that 3D kind of environment, you want the sounds to revolve around you. And 7.1 gives you that.
This is completely off track. I apologize for it, but let me ask you about, is Dolby Headphone still around? Because I love that.
Absolutely, and we
did a show in Dolby Headphone. It was amazing.
Did you really?
Yeah, the Dolby guys came out. We had 7 or 8 hosts, and every host was positioned differently on the sound stage. So as somebody's talking, you can hear them there, you can hear them here, you can hear them behind you. It was amazing. So in a binaural headphone.
Yeah, so Dolby Headphone will give you a simulated surround sound experience over just a pair of regular headphones.
Yeah.
And it's actually one of the things that's enabling surround sound to to travel now to all of these new devices. I'm going to see you there with the mobile phone in your hand. That's a technology that's great for mobile phones.
You're going to give me surround sound on my mobile?
Absolutely. We have a demonstration upstairs where you can see that very thing, where we can with the new Nokia N8 phone, we have Dolby Digital Plus decoding inside. So first of all,
you're kidding.
No, absolutely.
So I have an N8 and I couldn't figure out what to do with it. So now I know.
You should come up and
I will. So how do I get encoded material? We were able to make an MP3 that was compatible, so you could hear it in stereo. But if you had the right decoding equipment, you could hear this surround.
Yeah. So increasingly, we think you'll be able to download or stream content that's Dolby Digital Plus encoded.
Wow.
And so we have a great clip of the Tron movie upstairs that we're showing. And basically, you can get, well, first of all, you can get a great surround sound experience just from plugging in a pair of headphones. But where that experience really comes alive is when you plug that phone into your home theater. So that's what we're doing upstairs. We're actually taking the N8 phone, plugging it in with HDMI into our home theater.
I might have to resurrect my N8.
That becomes your source device, your home theater source device.
Yeah, it's the smallest home theater in the world.
But it also is a proof of a concept for a headphone that it doesn't need a lot of processing power or
Yeah, it's very realistic to put in a tablet device, a mobile device, all those kind of things.
Of course, the computer in that cell phone is thousands, millions of times more powerful than the one that went to the moon.
Yeah, well, we know that. But I still can't log onto the chat room. I don't know.
There is that.
I'm desperately trying to get into the chat room here so we can see our comments. Well, it's so nice to meet you, Jason. Thanks for coming by. I will go up to the Dolby booth and I don't have my N8 with me, but at least I can get the demo of that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we'd love to show you it.
And Dolby Plus, look forward to it in your home theater system near you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Let's take a break. When we come back, we have more from the NAB Show, the National Association of Broadcasters, coming up a little later on this afternoon, or I guess this morning if you're in the West Coast. Mac Break Weekly at 11 o'clock, 2 p.m. Pacific, or 11 o'clock Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. On live.twit.tv. And I think we're doing This Week in Radio Tech. What time are we going to do that?
Tomorrow, the same time.
That's tomorrow at the same time.
9 a.m.
Okay.
Pacific.
And I don't know what else is coming up, but there's many things ahead.
Many things ahead. We've got some more guests coming in.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And we also, tonight, don't forget, we're going to be streaming 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, digital, the Broadcast Minds panel that I'm going to be on with Adam Carolla, talking about the future of streaming television and streaming broadcasts, which is very exciting.
Which is what we're doing right now.
Are we? Well, dang, I had no idea. We're very forward-thinking here. We're way ahead of the game.
Indeed.
Say again? Netflix is about what I'm about to do. That's look at that. We are talking about broadcast minds like that.
That's right.
Yeah, I wanted to mention our friends at Netflix. You're a Netflix user.
I am.
You're a Netflix user. Yeah. This is the problem I have with this advertisement.
We're preaching to the choir.
We're preaching to the choir. And anybody who watches the TWiT network, I shouldn't tell Netflix this, but anybody who watches the TWiT network, by goodness, by golly, by gum, ought to be a Netflix subscriber. But you know what I realized? What we could do is we could tell you this is a great gift for the family members who are not yet quite.
There you go.
Yeah, I gave my mom Netflix. I started doing this about 5 years ago. On her birthday, every year, she gets a year's subscription to Netflix. It's very easy to do on the Netflix site. And then now she's very excited about streaming. She's just started to get into that. So if you go to netflix.com/twit, if you haven't tried it, you can try it. But you could send family members there as well and see if they want it. Say, hey, I'm looking at Christmas gifts. I'm looking at 4th of July gifts. And I'm just thinking maybe this Netflix. What do you think? Now, here's the beauty of this. Of course, everybody knows about the business, the DVD by mail business, right? You could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 discs at a time. I have the 5-disc subscription. So I have 5 discs at home. When I send one back, they send me the next disc in my queue, in my list. And they do it in about 1 business day, which is pretty amazing. One of the ways they do that, I found out, is that they actually have scanners in many post offices. So when it arrives, when your mail carrier brings it to the post office, they scan it. Netflix knows, all right, it's on its way back. Ship them another movie. And that's how they get it out fast.
That's incredible.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
And Netflix has pretty much every movie ever put on DVD or Blu-ray. I watch a lot of Blu-ray movies that way, but I have to be honest with you, the Netflix streaming has kind of superseded a lot of the disc viewing I do because I can do it instantly. So here's the deal with Netflix streaming, and you can go right now to netflix.com/twit and take a look. The Watch Now, the Watch Instantly portion of it. You can pick from thousands, tens of thousands of movies and watch them instantly on your PC, of course, on your iPad, your iPhone, I use a Roku box. Many Blu-ray players have it. I just saw it's in the Panasonic TVs. It's in the
most
LG TVs. Almost all TVs. Blu-ray players. Almost all of them.
Blu-ray players.
So that means if you've got internet access and you've got one of these devices, you can watch movies like that at no additional charge. In fact, they even have a $7.99 a month subscription that gives you full access to the instant movies, and that is amazing. I have to say I don't watch a whole lot of broadcasters all around here. I don't watch a lot of broadcast television anymore because I'm watching Netflix all the time. In fact, I saw, did you see the stat of something like 40% of all internet traffic during prime time is Netflix?
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Unbelievable.
So if you haven't tried it, I want you to go to netflix.com/twit. Netflix.com/twit. And I'm really excited. If you've the good thing is it's great for catching up on TV shows. All of the lost episodes are on there. I've been saving them for my retirement. Then I'll watch them. And you watch them commercial-free, and you can eat them like candy, 3 or 4 episodes at a time. It's amazing. Glee is now up there. They just did a deal to put Mad Men, all 8 seasons of Mad Men, on Netflix streaming. If you missed Mad Men, this is the way to watch it in high def on a big screen TV using Netflix. I want you to try it.
You can get addicted to some shows by eating them like candy.
Yeah.
My wife is addicted to Drop Dead Diva.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh my gosh! Oh, she's seen everything.
That's a reality show?
No, it's a drama, comedy drama show.
Oh, okay.
About a woman who was beautiful, died, came back as a fat girl.
Oh, I gotta watch that.
Wow,
because I came back as a fat boy, so I was beautiful, you know. And then this.
It's an interesting premise, actually.
It's a great premise.
Yeah.
Ha ha. So Netflix.com/twit. Give it a try today. We are big Netflix fans. Hey, let's say hi right now to Ben Runyan. He's from Xilinx. Is that how you pronounce it, Ben?
Yep, Xilinx.
Xilinx. Xilinx.com. Tell me about Xilinx.
So Xilinx is a...
I can't hear you. Why can't I hear him? Is he turned up all the way? I'm sorry, Ben. I don't mean to.
Try that again.
Can you hear me now?
Oh,
there we go. There we
Can
go.
you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You know, he must have that great Omnia processing.
She's got a good
Why is it
voice.
everybody sounds good here?
Yeah.
So what is this? What is Xilinx?
So Xilinx is one of the chip manufacturers that's in a lot of the equipment here within the broadcast industry. We're essentially...
Are they DSP chips or?
It's actually a different form. It's a programmable device, similar to DSPs, but
a programmable logic array.
Yeah, programmable logic array.
It's
much
also
more.
in consumer devices as well, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So a manufacturer can then customize it to do what they need it to do, or how does that work?
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, you get a lot of flexibility in what you want to do. Really, in the broadcast world, the big issue is the real-time nature of it, and that's
Right.
usually where a DSP or a processor may not be the ideal solution. It's not as real-time nature. So in broadcast, when you're out in that field and you're broadcasting something to the home, every little bit of latency and real-time processing capability is important, and that's what our chips do really well.
Ben, I'm going to be able to ask you a few questions here because our gear, Telos Omnia, actually, we use a ton of Xilinx chips.
Really?
Yes, we do. The field programmable gate arrays, right?
Yep, right,
FPGAs.
that's it.
And I'm a reasonably technical guy, but I still don't really understand what these things do. And so I'm guessing that a lot of people in our audience are about at my level here. You got an idea what a DSP is, but this FPGA, this is a concept that I haven't wrapped my brain around. So Telos hey, if you've got a Telos Zephyr,
We do.
Zephyr
Yep.
Extreme,
Yep.
if you've got almost anything we make, Axia gear all has FPGAs in it. What are we doing with these?
So, in one sense, you can look at it as somewhat of a DSP on steroids. I mean, it's got all the DSP capability in it, but it's also got SerDes capability, so that's how you get all your SDI content, all your Ethernet, everything comes in through that. You've got lots of fabric capability in there, so besides the DSP sort of soft processing going on, you now can put hardened functional blocks in there to do your video processing that you need to do in the chain. So
it's really a computer on a chip. I mean, and fully programmable, so that they can. I'm sure you put your codecs in the Xilinx chip, for instance.
I don't know.
I would
yeah, I mean,
guess.
you can. Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff we're showing over at our booth is really some of this AVC intra encoding going on. So you can essentially, doing that electronic news gathering out in the field, you can very low latency, very real time, get it compressed and up and over a satellite link back to the
I
studio.
mean, you could put a processor and RAM in there. You could put a firmware program in there, but it's not going to run anywhere near as fast as something that's written right into the hardware, in effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what an FPGA does, is that changeable dynamically quickly?
Yes, it is. Actually, there are capabilities when it actually on a clock cycle you can change it.
Wow.
And so we have that capability.
Okay.
Where
That's
So
the field programmable part.
So
of it.
during some clock cycles, it could be part of it could be doing one function, and then now we need this for a few milliseconds or nanoseconds. Do this, and then we go back to what we were doing before.
Yeah, you could.
That kind of
That's
thing.
actually one of the capabilities.
So, I was just looking at one of the boards that our R&D guys have. It's a development board for Axia live IP audio, and on this little board there's a little I don't know if it's cold fire processor, some kind of little CPU, and there's some RAM, and then there's a Xilinx chip, and so the Xilinx is just tying these things together, and is it programmed by the software?
So we have a large tool suite that comes with it, and it's similar to a DSP. I mean, you have to have a complete development environment to program one of these things. They are still very complex devices, and with a ton of capability in them. So yeah, there's a whole development suite towards it that you have to work through to get that capability on there. Yeah.
I would expect that though that an FPGA field programmable gate array would be more expensive than a dedicated locked down chip that does one thing and thus evermore.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you sort of got in that world. It's the ASICs or ASSP kind of chips. They have a fixed functionality,
Right.
and they do what they do. But then you're somewhat locked into that functionality. And if you want to upgrade it in the field, so definitely the flexibility and essentially longer time in life, so you can keep your equipment in the field longer with upgrades through an FPGA.
This is making good sense. There's a company called Barracks that makes codecs, and they're very inexpensive, and they're very cheap, and they're very fixed. You really can't upgrade them.
Yeah.
And there's not really a competitor.
I use a Barracks box.
You
Actually.
do, that's
yeah,
right.
Barracks
And
encoder,
it does that one job very well.
That's
It'll
all it does.
Never do anything else.
If you're
Never.
listening to us on audio, that's
Yeah,
exactly
that's
right.
it. Yeah.
You're hearing the IceCast stream comes from a Barracks box, and that's it.
And
That's it. I can't even program the bit rate. It's like, this is it.
But that's an ASIC technology, and
Right.
if you're going to stamp out 100,000,
So that's the difference between ASIC and FPGA.
Apparently so.
Exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just the cost. I mean, it's really a cost trade-off. Broadcast industry doesn't tend to be in the hundreds of thousands or millions of units, so it's tough for an ASIC or ASSP to justify the return on investment there, and FPGAs do a great job of that.
So it's kind of halfway between firmware and a processor,
Well,
really.
and actually, you get the double benefit too. So you got all these standards going on in SMPTE and the Video Services Forum and all these other things. And normally, when a standard finishes up, sort of in the consumer side of things, you now have to wait 6-9 months to a year for the ASIC and ASSPs to roll out for that to go into the market.
Right.
But now, as soon as that standard's done, it's ready to go on the FPGA, which actually you saw in the consumer TVs. 3D TVs got to market at least a year sooner because of FPGAs, because they took their existing ASICs.
Oh, really?
Put us next to it in a co-processing role, and when you need to do that left and right, breaking up on the TV, that was done inside our FPGAs, and they got the 3D TVs to market a whole year earlier than they would have. So on the consumer side of things, we helped speed up that market as well.
Not only that, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it also allows firmware updates to occur, which we get all the time on Blu-ray players.
Yeah.
Blu-ray players, you have to update all the time, almost as new titles come out.
So when I put in a new disc and it says, sorry, I got to get on the internet before I can play this disc, it's downloading an update and it's going to a Xilinx chip to changing its behavior?
Blu-ray player is probably an ASIC or an ASSP. That's
a mass
stamp out
production.
but then it comes down but the firmware update comes down and comes down into memory then.
Yeah, and they would do it, and then they would load it. They basically would load that program into the chip at that point.
I see.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course, because Blu-ray players are so inexpensive.
Yeah.
I'm
has to be
thinking
an ASIC.
that my studio probably has 15 Xilinx chips in it between the Telos Zephyrs I've got in there and the Axia system I've got in there. I bet you I'm just loaded up.
I would guess you go across all 4 halls here, you're probably going to find Xilinx
Everywhere.
across 80% of the equipment.
Isn't it funny?
Here.
And it's something it's a name that obviously everybody in broadcast knows, but
no one
consumers,
consumers knows. Yeah, exactly.
Now I have to say that I'm looking at the chat room, and we must have a bunch of broadcast professionals in the chat room because they all know what's going on. They're going along for the ride, so that's very cool. I'm glad you could come and explain it to us.
Well,
Ben.
apparently we got the right guy, because it was in '85. FPGA tech was invented by Xilinx.
Oh,
yes, it was.
Everybody else,
there you go.
Everybody else
we were the founders of it. We created the technology. 25 years ago. Yeah.
That's incredible.
No, it'll be an interesting year because this year you'll see Christmas. This year you'll start seeing the 4K, 2K TVs coming out.
We were talking about
that.
We're going to actually see 4K consumer TVs.
You will see them. Won't be cheap, but they'll be coming out.
Oh, that's news to me.
And then you'll see the 1080p 60 3D TVs coming out this year as well.
This is that 60 frames that James Cameron was talking about. It's much more vivid. And that 1080p at a very high frame rate's got to look incredible.
Oh, it's going to look great.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, I mean, the amazing thing is these are 4K, 2K panels that have to go into these TVs so you can get the 1080p 60 3D.
Oh, interesting.
So they'll be pricey as well. So this is really, you've almost 4x the bandwidth again, even on the display side. Right. So even at the consumer side, the bandwidth has gone up.
So are we going to start seeing Xilinx chips in more consumer products as a result? I mean, the prices are obviously going to be higher.
Especially on the higher end TVs. You'll see us, usually that second generation of TVs will get heavily implemented with FPGAs, and then as the volume grows, they can justify going to an ASIC.
Punch out ASICs.
But the whole point of ASICs are just getting to the point where it's just too expensive on it. Every 6-9 months spinning it, they need about a year and a half, a little more return on their investment before they move on to the next generation.
That's interesting, yeah. And what's great about your business is you're always going to be on the leading edge of these products, and as they get proven and solidified, then that moves down to the less expensive product, and you move to the next big thing.
That's our mission in life. We're always trying to stay on that leading edge of the curve. We have to. Hopefully to help drive this industry.
Ben, it's been great meeting you. Xilinx.com. People are interested in this FPGA technology. Very, very interesting.
There's no Z in Xilinx.
There's no Z in Xilinx. Thanks for explaining that all to us, Ben. And the little scooplet that we're going to be seeing 4K, 2K screens. Once they start cranking those panels out, it gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
Of course, as with all digital technology.
Yeah, they're making them, right? Yeah. We really want to thank our friends. I should thank everybody who's making this broadcast possible today, including the folks at NewTek who are providing us with the TriCaster HD 850 for our broadcast today. You should see. I'm going to get a camera. We're going to get a camera at some point, Brent. I don't know how we could do it to show that new board. That we've got Alex Gumpel doing the switching up here, and the sound, Burke McQuinn's on the sound, but this new switcher that we've got, it's really a USB control surface, but I mean, those people at Grass Valley are going, It is pretty cool what we are able to do thanks to NewTek. NewTek's going to be hosting that panel I'm going to be on later today at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, the Broadcast Minds panel. We will stream that live, so you can watch that live. I'm sure they'll be switching that with a HD 850. Also, I'd like to thank the folks at LiveU. I didn't know this. Our signal is going back to you today. Usually we do it, it's funny because it's not a big deal to set up. I mean, it's a big deal, but it's not a huge deal to set up what we're doing here with the cameras and the lights and everything. The huge deal is getting it out of here. Right? I mean, we could sit here with all this.
Strike the set.
But how do we get it? No, I don't mean striking the set. I mean, how do we get it to you to get the home audio?
I see what you mean.
Namit Malhotra is here. He's founder and global CEO of Prime Focus. Namit, thank you for joining us. It's great to meet you. So get right up to that microphone and tell us what Prime Focus does. You're in Hollywood, so I think it's got to be something to do with movies.
Yeah, I think we actually are an end-to-end services company, servicing the film, broadcast, and the commercials industries across various continents in the world. We're set up in North America, in London, and all across India.
That's one thing we're learning. Kirk's telling us is broadcasting is growing worldwide, globally, because these local TV stations now are no longer government run. There's a whole sudden, explosion of privately owned stations all over the world. That's exciting. Yeah. So tell me, when you say services, what services do you provide?
So we provide, going back right in '95 when we started, we were a garage startup with an offline edit system for the television business. And since then, we've grown to be an integrated service provider, which means that we do from capture, which is providing cameras on set, all the way through all post services from visual effects, color correction, audio post-production, 2D to 3D conversion, digital content management. Wow. We do just about everything from a services perspective, from a soup to nuts.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. One of the reasons I wanted Namit on the show was Prime Focus was chosen by Lucasfilm to convert Star Wars from 2D to 3D.
Oh, you didn't mention that kind of plum gig.
That's
there.
a plum.
Save the best for last.
Yeah. So tell us about that. That's interesting.
So we've been obviously we've been growing very well on we've been a visual effects company. We also worked on Avatar on the visual effects.
Oh, okay.
And since then we've built our own 3D technology and a 3D pipeline for converting content from 2D to 3D. And over the last 1 year, since the explosion on 3D has happened, we've been part of that revolution, and in fact leading it from the front. We, like all other vendors in the world, tested on Star Wars, which is clearly the most prestigious project out there.
Yeah.
And clearly Lucasfilm ran through ILM, very, very extensive testing and made sure that they got exactly what they wanted and companies that were set up to service them. And I think we qualified on that, and here we are on the first Star Wars, which looks fantastic.
That's great. And 15 years ago, you were in a garage.
Yes.
That's really awesome. That must be pretty exciting. Probably watching Star Wars movies while you were working and studying.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually, I mentioned to Mr. Lucas, I said, back in school, I actually bought a book on ILM just to see Jurassic Park and how, how beautifully films were made and how they even visualized that. Back in India, it was a very, very big deal.
Isn't that
and
great?
Today to be working on Star Wars, I think, is a dream come true.
That's so cool. So how do you convert a 2D movie, one shot in 1977, in fact, into a 3D? Or you're not going to do
they're doing episode 1
You're going to start with 1. Oh, good. Thank goodness. All right. Was 1 mostly shot digital? I think it was, wasn't it?
Yes, I
so
think
you have
so.
digital masters that you're working with.
I think all movies have digital masters today.
Okay.
Because
they're converted.
They're all set up from a digital color correction perspective anyway.
Right.
And so digital masters are available for even much, much older films. And we're so we just got the digital files and we set up the entire pipeline based on how the technology operates, where you set up the depth and you sort of start to create the sense of 3D around every object.
Now there are ways to convert 2D to 3D, and then there are ways, and we've seen examples of really well done conversions and really poorly done conversions.
Sure.
Can you distinguish? What makes a good conversion? How do you get a good conversion versus a bad one?
I think some basic fundamentals that play to 3D generally. I think it's the language of 3D more than just conversion, because there are some kinds of shows that lend themselves very well, right from the way they are cut. Because if you have high-paced cuts, quick cuts, that's not ideal for 3D because you don't even register it, and it can be quite disturbing. On the other end, on the creative end, there obviously has to be a very, sensitive approach towards knowing the kind of language you want to sort of create for the consumer experience, and the amount of time, money, and creative artistry that needs to be there has to be sufficient. Otherwise, you're not going to get a good conversion.
So it's not merely technology. So do you have somebody like George sitting there saying, "Okay, I want that moving back. I want that moving forward"?
I think not him personally directly.
Yeah, I think he's busy.
But his associates, obviously, he's got ILM.
So they sit there, and is it Z depth that you're adding? I mean, do they say here, put a little more Z depth there, a little less there?
I think yes, there is a pass, as we call depth creation, where depth has to be added into the scene. And then more than just adding depth, it's about creating the sense of 3D, which has to be volume around every object. So you start to feel like there is a certain, depth to that particular individual.
Because I always think of the Z depth as what 3D is, but you're saying adding volume.
Exactly.
Do you do that with lighting? How do you do that?
No, so there are specific tools that have been created that facilitate that, and that becomes a very key part of. So it's about adding depth and the relevant distance between all objects.
Yeah.
And then it's about creating the right amount of volume so they look real and they look like.
Otherwise, it's like flat
yes.
pieces of paper on.
Exactly. And that is in 3D then.
And that's tricky to do, I'm sure, to add that because that information isn't there.
Sure.
Does that involve creating models of some of the objects?
So different companies have different pipelines set up for that. I think. Some people use models, some people use other tools that are available as part of the visual effects tool set that we typically have evolved from. So we have lots of tools that have been written over the years because we have been doing lots of visual effects. And there's some of this that is part and parcel of our overall pipeline anyways.
Very interesting. So you're not going to tell us?
I'm not supposed to.
That's the secret sauce, obviously.
Exactly right.
Wow.
But of course, to do it right takes more time and more money.
That's true, and it needs to be very carefully measured. So because you're basically creating something that isn't there, and you want to make it believable. So that's clearly needs a certain amount of time and effort. That,
Yeah.
without which you're not going to get the desired effect.
Somebody in the chat room said, "Make Jar Jar Binks' tongue scoot out of the audience."
Actually, another person in the chat room said, "Can you just make Jar Jar behind everything?" But that's a personal opinion. Not everybody hates Jar Jar Binks. It must be fun though to be working on this.
Absolutely.
Project. Are you going to get to do some of it yourself, or you have to let your minions do the job?
No, I think I'm not qualified for that.
Yeah, it's pretty specialized. You can't learn that. I mean, this is a brand new science.
It is an artistic approach towards the process.
It's art and science, I would say.
I imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have to have some measure of judgment as to what's looking good and what's in front of what else, and so on and so forth.
How long is this going to take? Do you have an estimate?
Actually, on episode 1, we're almost through. We're, from our end,
That's very quick. Well, you've been working secretly on this for years.
You've been doing 3D for years. It predates the current excitement about 3D, right?
I wouldn't say that long, but I think Lucasfilm obviously has been running their research, and ILM has been doing their own research for a very long time.
Right.
And they've been adding their tools, and the right approach towards 3D, I think, they've been sort of evaluating that over the years, and I think when they sort of got to that point of, that okay, now we're ready, then we came on board, which is now almost 8-9 months ago. To sort of.
Well, that's a pretty quick process, though. 8 or 9 months to get this job done.
So when is the movie going to be released?
I think from what we hear, it's February 2012.
Wow, quick turnaround.
Yeah.
And is it now when it comes out? It has to come out on Blu-ray, I would guess. Yes.
Well, theatrical first.
It's theatrical.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't understand.
Yeah,
so February they're going to re-release it theatrical.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Wow. That sounds very cool. Sounds like a lot of fun.
It really does sound like a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Kirk, you have any? Look, he's looking at Star Wars 1.
This in 3D.
Yeah, the chariot race.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. That must have been fun to work on.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow, going around corners.
Jabba the Hutt in 3D.
Ooh, I don't know about that. But on the other hand, Princess Leia, slave outfit 3D.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, say no more.
Now,
no more.
Are you booked for future projects, or is this like a one thing at a time here?
So we also worked on Narnia. That came out in December. That was very well received as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there are several films that are now going down the 3D route, and we are clearly playing a fairly active role on that side.
James Cameron and others have been very critical of 2D movies converted to 3D. Obviously, it's the only way we're going to get episode 1 in 3D. But he says always better to start from scratch. You agree that better to shoot from scratch in 3D? Or
in fact, I don't really think it's conversion or shoot is actually the solution. In fact, what we are starting to do right now is we actually recommend, depending on the kind of movie you make, the kind of scenes you have, what's best achieved on both different formats. You may theoretically say you're shooting in 3D, but actually what you're doing is just shooting a second eye.
Right.
And you're still setting up mechanical rigs that have, which are susceptible to huge failure themselves. So it's not a perfect science on shoot. On the conversion end, I think the tools that are being created and the sophistication that is being brought is, I think, significantly going to be ahead of the curve as far as the quality is concerned.
Do you think people will actually do 3D movies this way then instead of shooting them 3D?
Yeah, because, see, when we say we're shooting 3D, we're not really, there's no real 3D.
You're just adding information.
It's just adding information.
You'd probably prefer to have that information, though, in the conversion process.
So if you it's good to shoot, knowing that your film is going to be in 3D is better than shooting in 3D.
Because you'll have more information.
You'll have more information. You'll take certain shots. You'll cut the film in a certain way. It'll lend itself to a more, comfortable viewing experience for. Is
this what James Cameron and Vince Pace were talking about yesterday, where they were saying we want to make it possible to shoot 2D, 3D, 4K, 60 frame all at once.
Sure.
So it's all enabled, and then the filmmaker has these choices, not just the day they release the movie, but down the road later as well. They have that information.
Exactly.
They have that, and I think for what is being shot out there, I think there's no real basis to sort of say one is better than the other. The question is, it just comes down to the aesthetic and the understanding amongst filmmakers, because shooting 3D is equally complicated. It's not as simple as
You can
setting
screw
up
it
a
up
second
bad.
camera, and you can
do a really bad job.
And I think what Mr. Cameron has been more critical of, which is right, that is it's the approach towards the conversion. You know, just because you're converting it, it doesn't mean you take it and do a rush job, or you just ignore
Clash of
all
the Titans. I'm sorry.
ignore all of the other things that are critical to the whole process.
Right. You didn't do Clash of the Titans.
We did.
You did.
Yeah.
There was some criticism of that conversion.
Yes, there was.
Yeah, but you feel like you've gotten better, or
I think.
Was it a lack
I
of...
don't think the criticism was, again, of what we...
It wasn't your technology,
what we
it was
did.
the artistic choices that were made.
And I think the general issue was that it was an afterthought, which was probably what was...
They didn't shoot it with that in mind.
Right.
But for us...
But they didn't shoot Episode 4 with that in mind either, did they? I mean...
I think films like Star Wars, I think, have lend themselves to the 3D world, generally speaking.
There's so much CGI for one thing.
There's so much CGI, there's so much of...
so you do, I mean, in all the CGI, you have volumetric information, don't you?
You'd have, on most new films, I think all the films that are in the libraries don't necessarily have them archived in the formats that are relevant today. So
you couldn't go back to, say, Episode 4 and say, I want the models for the CGI. They've thrown that stuff away? You have to work from the film?
I don't think they've thrown that away. I'm not sure how much CGI existed during Episode 4. Because
it was all models. It was all physical models.
Those were physical models.
You're kidding. Not Episode 4. I'm sorry. I should have said Episode 1. The one you're working on.
Sure.
I'm so bad at this. I almost called it Star Trek, so just please.
Watch out there.
Forgive me. In Episode 1, do you still have the original digital models and so forth? Are you able to use those?
I think we didn't necessarily need...
You didn't need them?
We didn't need those specifically. I think because the way the depth was set up, we knew from the word go, that we'd be able to do it without that specifically.
Right. Although even the plastic models in Episode 4, I mean, they're 3D in the sense that they're real
objects.
Models. Yeah, so there's some information there. Very interesting. Well, it's so nice to meet you, Namit. What an exciting project you're getting to work on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really fun. Do you have any other questions for him, Scott?
I think
take him away from you.
No, it's a fascinating thing, and I'm really glad you were able to come join us.
Yeah. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm watching the chat room. They're very interested. Yeah, not all of them are broadcast geeks. Everybody's interested in this kind of stuff. Thank you, Namit.
I think every American and every person in the world who loves movies loves Star Wars. I think.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe bet. Yep. You're getting to work on the best.
Yep.
Namit Malhotra is a founder and global CEO. Started in a garage. Prime focus, and now working on Star Wars Episode 1. Thank you, Scott, for the prompting.
Which was not the first episode.
3D.
It was the fourth episode.
Hence my confusion.
Yes, it is confusing.
It's he shot him out of order.
Yeah.
Right? No big deal. Thank you, Namit.
They'll fix it in post.
Great to meet you. Thanks, Scott, for bringing Namit by. That's great.
You bet.
Let's take a break. We're going to talk a little bit about Squarespace.com, and we've got many more guests. You're watching us live from Las Vegas, Nevada, at the NAB Show, the National Association of Broadcasters show, which happens every year. 90,000 professional broadcasters and people interested in that kind of stuff work on it. And good. Oh, we're going to do it. Should we just go right to it? Okay, I'll do the commercial later because thank you, Kirk Harnack, for joining us.
No problem.
Come back tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
This week in Radio Tech.
This week in Radio Tech.
Anything you want to plug while you're here?
We need to do a startup. Namit gave me a great idea.
We want to do a startup.
Yep. We're going to convert.
This week in Jar Jar.
No, we're going to.
Okay. I mean, that's not a bad idea.
We're going to convert 3D movies to 2D.
There you go.
I'm in.
But we're going to do it artistically.
Yes. Flatten them right out. Nice to see you. Kirk Harnack from TELUS Corporation and the guy who is responsible for our great Axia IP broadcast audio in the studio. Is really a fantastic thing. Hey, guess who's here? I want to get right to him because I know he just has a little bit of time. Dick Glover, who's the CEO of Funny or Die. So nice to meet you.
Bring some comedy to the morning.
We love Funny or Die. What a great site that is.
Well,
and I mean, of course, your partners include
Will Ferrell, Adam McKay, Chris Henchy, Judd Apatow,
so there's no
Sequoia Capital.
A little money from the other people, yeah. But I mean, it was a big deal because Sequoia said, "Yeah, you got these guys." Yeah, we could do a site, and it's brilliant.
It actually, the idea, believe it or not, came from the son of a Sequoia Capital guy, going back 4 years today. I think today's our 4th birthday. That kid was 17 years old, hanging out on the internet, and he says to his dad at dinner, "Hey, how come, he's an aspiring stand-up comic who now 4 years later is actually doing very, very well. He says, how come there isn't like a Hot or Not, if you remember that site, of comedy, so I can find the good stuff. People will vote on it.
So that was the original concept, funny or die.
Correct.
I get it.
Correct. And so it came from him. His dad was talking to people, creative artist agency. They said, we know just the right guys to do this kind of thing. Introduced him to Will and Adam and Chris, and here we are.
And I'm sure Will and Adam and Chris appreciate this kind of free-form ability to get an idea like the Angry Landlord Baby.
Yep.
Was that was the first one I saw? Was that one of the first?
That launched the site.
Yeah.
That now up to almost 80 million views.
80 million, and deserving every one of them. I'm probably 10 of the 80 million. I love that. It's nothing funnier than a swearing baby, don't you think?
I couldn't agree more.
But I think the freedom,
as long as it's not your baby.
Yeah, right. No, I think the freedom that they get, I'm sure that they really, I'm sure Adam especially, really appreciates the ability to kind of write stuff and just do it.
And all the people we've had tremendous participation from A-list people throughout sports and entertainment. And the reason they do it is exactly that. They can do whatever they want. And in essence, there's no failure. You make a video, and if it's not great, hey, it was a silly little video.
Yeah.
You make a movie, and it's not great, and on Tuesday morning, they're writing your obituary. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And this is really the next generation of the studio.
Yeah, and the model.
That's interesting, really.
Yeah, the model to us, we really do look at it as we're the 21st century version of a fully vertically integrated studio. Keep the cost of content down, keep the cost of marketing down, and then distribute your content wherever people are to consume it. So we're doing traditional, I don't know if I put that in quotes maybe, but traditional TV shows. We just
What's the longest form you do?
Well, we just completed production on a movie, feature-length
movie.
That again, very low budget,
right,
very inexpensive, a passion project of a couple of guys who we do a lot of work with, that we have a whole social media and marketing mechanism to where we can market it so your cost of marketing is much lower.
Do you provide them with all the technical facilities as well? They come to you and say, we don't know what to do, but we have something we want to do.
We can. In that case, they had access to production, but we provided. In fact, Will and Adam at Chris, all three are executive producers of the movie, providing kind of oversight to it.
Well, I'm the king of low-budget passion projects. I'm behind you 100%. Has your model changed a little bit? Because originally it felt like this is going to be a destination site and competing head-to-head with YouTube, and I think that's changed a little bit.
Yes, it absolutely has changed. That I think it's almost a fluke, and part of the fluke is the landlord, that you can develop in this day and age a standalone destination site and brand. I don't think you can do that again. We were lucky enough to be right place, right time, right product, but did it. But once having done that, the model is get your product out and have people consume it, make them aware of it, and have them consume it wherever they want to consume it.
You still have the Funny or Die bug, so we know where it came from.
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons I'm here is as we move into this world of connected TVs and complete, ubiquity of broadband and 4G, we need to know how are people going to be getting content, and how are we sure our content is available to them through whatever device and wherever they are.
Well, that's one way the world has changed. You used to go to Channel 7. You used to go to CBS to watch Ed Sullivan.
Right.
Nobody goes anywhere. It's all just kind of floating around. And you might have seen it on Funny or Die yesterday. It doesn't mean you're going to go back tomorrow to see what's there now. It's not a channel anymore.
What's the average age of someone coming to Funny or Die? What are the main age groups?
Yeah, about 24 years old. It is
interesting.
Clearly, I mean, and for an advertising model, and the website, it is, 78 or 79% of our audience is 18 to 34.
Wow.
And that's the demographic advertisers want, because they don't watch TV. They can't reach them.
Correct.
They say, where are these people? How do we talk to them?
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's created a whole market for us in this so-called branded entertainment, where you're working with a brand to create an entertaining piece of content, which also is an ad for their product. And then one of the things I've said often about that audience is everybody thinks, oh, young people hate advertising. That's not true. They hate bad advertising.
They don't like to be talked down to. They don't like to be annoyed. But if it's something they're interested in and it's contextual,
Well, doesn't it seem like if you want to get the word out, you're going to have to create great content in some way, shape, or form. And it has to be connected to content. It can't just be this is our product anymore. It has to have context.
Right. No, you can't tell somebody, hey, this is great, go buy it. They're like, wait a second, how does it connect to me? You know, there's much more of an emotional connection, which also is a two-edged sword. The old story of, boy, hook them when they're 20 and you have a lifetime customer. You know, that's not true anymore. But yet, what is true is hook them with a message or getting into their lifestyle is a very deep connection to them. And they will stay with you and consume a lot of you until somehow either you disappoint them or they move on.
Yeah, you can't manipulate people into buying your product anymore.
No.
You can't say, fresher breath, whiter whites. You have to create a bond.
Yep.
But that's where a space like Funny or Die makes... You've got the bond already. And it's the same thing for us, frankly. We got the bond already, so it's a natural follow-on to that. Yeah,
no, that's exactly right.
How do you do your ads? Are they interstitial? Are they pre-rolls? Where do they show up?
The combination. One, we sell spots and dots, and the traditional IAB internet media.
Kind of banners.
Last month we served over 400 million ad impressions, and that you just sell on a CPM basis, whatever. Second, we do not do pre-rolls on the site. We do pre-rolls off the site. So if you're viewing our video on a YouTube channel or in an embedded player at a blogger or somewhere like that, you will, not every video there's a formula, but you will see a pre-roll.
That's a challenge because we know people don't like pre-rolls. Yeah, we've been thinking about it as well, and it's a real challenge.
Yep.
How do you get people to accept that?
And again, we're doing, frankly, a lot of trial and error, a lot of testing.
This is all new.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Yeah. And that's why we don't do it on the site itself. On the site, if you're coming to the site, you're coming to watch a video.
Right.
Or we now have some articles and, infograms
blogs and stuff.
Things like that, but primarily to watch a video. And so if that's what you're doing, we're saying, you know what, we're not going to risk diminishing that experience by putting on a pre-roll. If you get this as you're, reading a blog on the Huffington Post and they're talking about it, and it says, we say, okay, you're there, maybe you will tolerate it more. So we have been doing pre-rolls, and so far we have not seen any resistance. Now we monitor it very, very closely because, again, you talk about the bond with the consumer and the audience. You don't want to mess with that.
Now, is that an active insertion, or is it a dynamic insertion, or is it something that's burned into the video?
Dynamic insertion.
Right.
We don't burn anything into the videos.
Yeah.
And we do. That's the other part of our company, which is, I think, unique. It's all us. It's all our own technology. We've got office in Palo Alto, where you have the world-class athletes on the technology, social media, engineering side. We do that. We build. It's our own player. It's our, it's not our own ad serving, but it's managed by us, obviously. We also have all our own social media guys who are experts in social media because they live that life, not because Funny or Die has hired them to do it. That's what they live. And we use social media not as a marketing tool per se, but as another way to connect on a daily basis with the audience. And so we'll be, doing things, whether it's with Twitter, whether it's with Tumblr, whether it's with anybody else, that has nothing to do with a website or nothing to do with a video, just having to do with something we think is funny, an observation on life, a place that we want to go. And so it's been a very effective part of the company.
And you see yourself as the next generation movie studio. This is where content people will come and say, this is how I want to
And you do the math. You keep the cost of content down. You keep the cost of marketing down. You maintain an audience that you can market directly to. You don't need millions of people to go to a movie studio.
Sounds familiar.
That's what I was going to say.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, maybe we should think about that.
Yeah.
Well, in a lot of ways, as I used to work on films and TV, and I still work on films and TV and web, and I try to explain to people, this is just media now. Like we're not filmmakers or TV professionals or web producers. We're just making, content, right?
Yep. No, exactly.
They're asking in the chat room, we're going to see Angry Landlord Baby the movie.
That you won't see.
Child protection laws,
Yeah, you won't.
unfortunately.
Well, Will and Adam, actually, when the movie came out, there were some people that,
I remember.
that were
There was a
upset,
little- yeah.
oh my
How
God.
dare you do that?
Yeah, now
Was it Adam's kid?
It was Adam's kid, and what happened was they were saying, okay, we're going to start this website. Will and Adam said to the Sequoia partner, well, what's the budget? He said, there's no budget. Just do it. You guys must have like home movie camera or something, right?
Right.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's think about
what's
it.
the budget?
And Adam started thinking about it. He said, my daughter will mimic anything I say. I said, I bet we could do something great with that. 80 million views later.
Hysterical. Dick, it's so nice to meet you. You're doing a great job.
Pleasure.
Funny or Die
Good to
is
see you
just
guys.
fantastic. And,
Well, thank you.
And we wish you the best. I think it's the future of production.
It's
I
been
love
fun
it.
being
Absolutely.
here.
Yeah.
Nice to talk to kindred spirits.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Thanks, guys.
We're cheap.
As I say, kindred spirits.
Kindred spirits. Thank you, Dick Lover, CEO of
Thank you so
FunnyOrDie.com. Well, that's a really great success story.
Yeah,
and I have to say, I saw, of course, we all went and watched The Angry Landlord, and then didn't go back. And I thought this is going to be difficult if they want to make this a destination. And they obviously were able to clearly pivot and say, it is, oh no, but we don't care. Let it be anywhere. This has
Right.
always been our philosophy. Let it be anywhere.
Yeah, people always ask me, how are you going to protect your content? I'm like,
Don't.
No.
Stop.
You want,
That's a
you
bad
want to get
model.
that out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Alex Lindsay has joined us from the Pixel Corps, pixelcorps.com, for the Multimedia Guild, who was there in hog heaven at NAB. I know you were walking around. I walked around with you for a little bit, streaming from back there. Also, pixelcorps.tv. But if you want to watch the live streams, pixelcorps.com/live.
That's correct.
You're going to do more of that. How'd the poker game go?
I didn't last very long.
He doesn't know how to play poker.
No, I know. No. So I know how to play poker. I've just never played Texas Hold'em. So as soon as I realized that it's basically a seven card stud with a communal pot.
Right.
Like as soon as that model hit, I understood what I needed to do.
Right.
The issue is that there was a whole bunch of sharks on one side, and we were like a bunch of I guess the technical term is donkeys.
Yeah.
And I was in, I was calling us dolphins, but no, they said no, it was really.
Well, the line from Rounders.
donkeys.
Every table has a fish. Look around. If you don't see the fish, it's you.
Well, so I just folded and finally got one good hand, and I played it hard, and everyone went all in. Like I just picked the hand where everyone was going to go all in, and that was the last hand I played.
Look at all these people. I've just been handed 4 Post-it notes. Are we going to bring in all 4 of these all at once? Holy cow! Well, while we're getting that set up, from Adobe, this is the Digital Rebels panel is going to come by. From filmmaker, visual effects supervisor. I'm going to let you do the questioning, Alex Lindsay, because this is your bailiwick.
Yes.
And I'm also then going to ask you what you've seen on the show floor that you're interested in. You took me to something that was pretty mind-boggling, and I was very interested in that, but we'll talk about that in a second. Before we do, though, I want to say hello to our friends at Squarespace.com and encourage you, if you have not yet created a website, or if perhaps you'd like to create a new one. For years, people, and I see Dick DiBartolo do this all the time, when they see a good idea, they run out and they get the domain name, but they never do anything with it.
Right.
It seems to me you should run out, get the domain name, and then create a site. And there is no easier way to do it for free for the first 2 weeks than Squarespace.com. You could set up a site like that, and it could be your test. Your test case.
And you don't have to be technical. You don't have to know anything about HTML coding. You don't have to know how to install it on the server. You don't not have to do any of that stuff. You just simply put it together. And I've done a fair bit of it myself.
Yeah.
And it's just, you just literally, it's all WYSIWYG.
Talk about,
moving stuff around.
If you want to raise money, if you've got this idea for this comedy site, we'll call it Funny or Die, and I'd like to see if I can raise some money. Having that site up and working as a proof of concept is absolutely critical to the next step of getting funding, and this makes it as easy as it could be. Go to squarespace.com, click the green Try It Free button. You'll only need to give them you don't need to give them a credit card number, just a password and a login, the name of your site, and you're funnyordie.squarespace.com, and you're up and running.
And there's all these things that you would normally think you'd have to write code for that are just widgets. You just I want an Amazon connection. I want a
RSS feed, Flickr,
books that I like,
Twitter.
and all the other pieces, and all of that stuff's just built in. You just drag it and drop it.
Here's Soundwave in our chat room says, my brother's wife's sister set up a Squarespace. Well, if Soundwave's brother's wife's sister could do it, you can you can do it. Here's the deal. Squarespace.com/TWiT. Try it free for 14 days. $12 a month for hosting and all the content, all the software, everything you need, including all those great widgets. You don't need to have any expertise in CSS or JavaScript, although if you do, you can use it. We really love Squarespace. Version 6 is just around the corner. It is very exciting. Squarespace.com/TWiT. We thank them for their support. We also thank the folks at LiveView for providing the streaming for this show. We are using LiveView backpacks to get the signal back up to the TWiT cottage, not only from everywhere out in the field, but here in studio. You were using the LiveView yesterday as you wandered around the show floor.
It's the way to do it.
They're great, liveview.com, and also thanks to our friends at NewTek for the TriCaster HD850 we're using to switch it. Don't we love these new lower thirds? I think they look so good. Oh, man, I can't wait. We're going to have the 850 in the new studio. It's going to be a big upgrade. And Alex Gumpel's running the board right now. He says, you know, I can do a whole lot more with these lower thirds. I just didn't want to mess around with it for today, but we're going to get him to start doing motion with things will be flying and great all over the place. So let's get our panel of wizards here. They just came back from the Digital Rebels panel. We've got some Digital Rebels in the house here. I'll start with, I don't know which order or who you are. Well, I'll start here with Tyler Nelson. He's a visual effects supervisor. Tyler, it's nice to meet you. Welcome to the TWiT panel today.
Thanks for having me.
You're a digital rebel, huh?
Some say.
He's a mild-mannered digital rebel. Sitting to his right, Gareth Edwards, who is a filmmaker. Nice to meet you, Gareth.
I prefer the term freedom fighter.
A freedom fighter, a hacker. Put that mic right up in your nose there. We'll hear you a lot better. And then I have a 50-50 chance of getting this right. You're either Johnny or you're Jacob.
Jacob.
Jacob Rosenberg is here. He's from Ben Ito Brothers.
That's one way of saying it.
Or Benito Brothers.
Bandito Brothers. Yeah.
Bandito Brothers.
2 words. 3 syllables.
It's misspelled here. It's Bandito, like Frito Bandito?
Absolutely.
Bandito
like
Brothers.
Yeah, Bandito Brothers.
Okay. I think they thought you said Benito Brothers.
That's all right.
I
know that those guys are good people, too.
Nice to have you, Jacob.
You.
So that means that you are Johnny Loiacono?
That's me.
Loiacono?
That's me.
One of those. From Adobe.
That's me.
That's great. So, Johnny, what was the Digital Rebels panel all about?
Well, it's actually coming up later today.
Oh, it's coming up?
Yeah.
So you're soon to be Digital Rebels.
Soon to be Digital Rebels.
Yeah.
Right now we're digital wannabes, but the panel is really about what's happening in the industry is that these guys are really pioneers and mavericks, and they're really driving kind of a new trend, which is to use digital software and digital distribution like the internet to dramatically lower the cost but still produce incredibly fascinating content.
I sense a theme here. We just had the Dick Glover on, CEO of Funny or Die, and that's exactly what he was saying.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's exactly the case. So go ahead. I'll let you.
Yeah. So of course, I think that this has been a big year for I think a lot of digital rebels. What are some of the tools that you guys are really focusing on the floor that have come out this week or recently that you think are going to affect your workflow? Anything specific?
I think there's an eternal goal for all digital rebels to have the ultimate camera.
Right.
And so I think if
there's quite a few ultimate cameras.
What is
out
the
there.
ultimate camera?
This is the big question. I'm not sure. If you go to the Red, they'll tell you it's the Epic. If you go to Sony, they'll tell you maybe it's the F3 and things like this. But
they're excited about the F3. Yeah, full frame sensor, 4K.
But it's still pretty big. It's a small shoebox.
Oh, so Ideal would also be small.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Portable.
Small camera.
Good in low
large
light.
Image sensor. Good in low light.
Yeah.
Adaptable lens selection, so you can put different glass on it. Which
right.
Well, and that's changed dramatically over the last couple of years. I mean, I think part of the 5D kind of coming into it, and the 5D was really a big push for a lot of this, don't you think? I mean, the Red was, of course.
Well, I think that what the 5D did that was different than any other camera is it minimized the footprint of what you needed on set to do something. The Red, as awesome of an idea as it was, and as amazing of a launch of a product that we've ever seen. I mean, closed door sessions at NAB. I've been coming here for 13 years, and I've never seen anything like that. And the 5D really allowed you just to go out with a small camera and get beautiful images, and that's kind of what you want to do. The Red, for better or for worse, you had Video Village, you had a Video Tap, you had a camera that was just as big as a film camera. The whole idea was, hey, this isn't film.
So it was less expensive than the big film cameras.
Yeah.
What you want is a camcorder that looks great. No?
I don't know that you want a camcorder that looks, well, the image should look great.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
it gives you great video.
I think the Red Epic gets closer to that.
It's smaller.
It's smaller. It's a little bit more compact. I mean, you don't want to have to be moving mass all the time.
Right.
But you also, want want those choices. I mean, I think the biggest thing that the Canon did was it said, oh, well, you could put this type of glass on, you could put this type of glass on, you could do this. And all of those choices allow that to be a better
And those were
product.
inexpensive choices.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not spending. You're not worried about PL. You're not
exactly. And if you wanted to modify your camera for a PL mount, you could, and you could rent those, those lenses.
Right.
But it's funny because 5 years ago we would just be saying, I just want to save on film stock. So I mean, going digital is a big leap.
Yep.
In terms of inexpensive film production right away, right?
It is and it isn't, because I feel like with digital more than film, you have a process, and I think Tyler can speak to this pretty well. There's just so much you can fix and change and noodle with. Where in film, you're married to it, but film is much more defined.
Right.
There's so many anomalies that exist within digital filmmaking that becomes part of the new aesthetic.
Right.
Or those are problems that you have to solve.
Well, we've seen that with all digital. I mean, even writing, it's too easy to edit in a word processor, and you never stop messing with it. Yeah. So it's funny, Tyler, you don't usually think of visual effects as being inexpensive.
No, I mean, like,
and yet,
specifically, like, if you go to a visual effects house, they can be incredibly expensive. That's why budgets of movies can be so high these days.
Right.
But because there's products, like consumer products out there that, like After Effects, that you can just simply take footage that you shot off the Red camera and do final visual effects within this consumer application. That's like one of the advantages of it.
Right.
And
so when you talk visual effects these days, you're talking. Move the mic a little bit closer, or sit up, one or the other. Yeah. Poor Burke is. He's crawling around on the floor trying to figure out how to do that. So nowadays you're talking about consumer software applied to digital film or digital video.
Yeah, I mean, like there's like the professional products, quote unquote, professional products out there that might be able to do it a little bit faster, more hardware acceleration behind them. But if you're not needing the speed, the immediacy of it, such as like in a commercial environment where you're finishing commercials, like 30-second spots in front of visual effects supervisors that need stuff done like right now.
Right.
There's no need to expedite it unless you're.
Well, and there's certain levels of creativity that you get also when you have that post process. I mean, I was doing Star Wars shots in After Effects, in the late '90s, and so the thing is that it is a. But what you get, you have an enormous amount of power in something like Nuke or something like Shake. But the main thing, or it used to be Shake, but the level of creativity that you get from a program like After Effects will give you the opportunity to add a lot of those pieces. What do you think are the most important pieces when you're working in whatever post-production tools that you're using? What are the most important parts of those that you find make this all work, that allow you to glue this all back together?
I think it's the ability to I can't really speak to this because I'm not visual effects supervisor is not really the title that I go by. I'm more of an assistant editor, but I do a lot of the visual.
But isn't that the point?
Yeah.
That you assistant editor who does all the visual effects.
Please,
but
more of them.
There is no supervisor.
That's true. No, but I can't speak to the power behind Nuke because I've never used it. I've used Shake just a little bit, but as far as like the rudimentary visual effects that need to be done for the movies that I've done, then like I'm for instance like the Benjamin Button or the Social Network, I don't think you're capable of achieving the same face replacement results in After Effects that you are in certain proprietary softwares that have been built by these huge facilities. But if you're going to go in there and you're going to do little paint work, little stabilization, split screen comps, painting, it can be done in After Effects, and I think Gareth can speak to that as well because he's done quite a bit with his movie.
Tell us about your movie. What is your movie, Gareth?
I take too long to explain my film. That was my problem. It's kind of a mix of different things. It's called Monsters. It was a monster movie, but the main thing about it was that we shot it with a tiny crew. I filmed it myself. We had a sound man, because sound's very important, as you can tell.
It is
part of the whole experience.
It's a big deal.
But it was all done on Adobe Creative Suite. So, and the great thing about it is, I find what's important with the tools is that they all interconnect. Because when you sit and watch a movie, you're not watching all these separate elements. You're watching an entire single experience, and the ultimate software would be very similar to that. And so what I like about the reason I use After Effects is because it links with Photoshop and Premiere, which is what we edited the film in, quite seamlessly. So you can build a very crude version of the film as you go, and it's a bit like being a paramedic or something. You can go and fix the things that need fixing and leave the things that don't, and I think it's a much more efficient way to work. Otherwise, what happens is you invest a lot of time and energy messing with pixels that no one's ever going to notice, and so I really like that way of working, and I've always been an Adobe person, so
Johnny likes you.
Love.
Yeah. So actually, Johnny, didn't Adobe today announce a new pricing and a Creative Suite 5 and all of that? What?
A new enhancement to the entire Creative Suite. So we had CS5 that came out about a year ago. We've now introduced CS5.5, and one of the major enhancements in the suite is actually a whole new set of video tools. So enhancements to Premiere and After Effects, as well as some of the media encoding capabilities on the back end. So I'm trying to revamp the entire video portfolio within that suite.
And I'm sure it's not your domain, but I'll mention the new pricing model includes rental, right?
Subscription. So we're now going to offer subscriptions as well. You bet.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
It makes a lot of sense. It's one of those things. It's hard to figure out how to do it. And I think that's a big upgrade. I mean, I think we don't talk about that much, but figuring out how you're going to turn it on, turn it off, make it work, pay for it, sit all, because it's something.
Well, it can be a big chunk up all at once. If you're talking about a monthly, price of $129 or something like that, it's a little bit more accessible, especially to filmmakers who are, on a budget.
Well, the challenge is always that when you have a piece of software that might be $1,000 or $1,500, that upfront cost is big. Some customers will like the ability to go in and actually rent that on a monthly or, in fact, annual basis. We're finding that the biggest uptick has been on annual subscription, which we thought was a little surprising.
Yeah.
Also, you have things where someone's doing a project and they're working on it for 2-3 months.
I only need it for this long. Why should I buy it forever?
So they'll rent it or lease it, if you will, for that amount of time, and then turn it off.
Jacob, you've worked on major motion pictures as well. You've consulted with a lot of...
I have.
I'm seeing the list here of all the movies that you've worked on. So this is a big shift in some ways in how movies are made, or no?
Yeah, it is. Yes and no. I think I've been very fortunate in that I carved a nice little niche for myself with Adobe quite a long time ago in becoming a very good expert in Adobe video software tools. And when you get phone calls from really famous visionary directors that you would love the opportunity to work with,
James Cameron type of person,
you jump at the chance to solve those problems. I solved a 3D playback pre-visualization playback thing for Jim with a friend of mine, Rob Legato, who's an incredible visual effects supervisor, and so that the bigger picture is that it's problem solving that doesn't change, and I think that
the tools change, but the problems remain the same.
The problems are the same, and what I love about this industry and about the work that I do and the people that I meet is that we all, at least the three of us here, are probably very good problem solvers. If there was ever a problem, I'm pretty sure we would be good. We haven't had enough conversation.
I struggled getting my coffee this morning. I wouldn't agree with that.
That's not the problem that I'm worried that you could solve.
Really, you're a storyteller if you're a filmmaker, but ultimately, in the process of telling your story, there are problems after problem after problem you have to solve.
And it's true, and I think that the tough thing, and for me as a CTO at my company and also a director, is that when you're focusing on something creatively, you don't want to be inundated with all of these technical thoughts and technical concerns. But at the same time, if my partners or someone else, at the company is working on something, I want to be able to say, okay, wait, this is what we can do, and that solves that. And I think that, I think the wonderful thing with Adobe has been that their tools solve problems, to me, in a very literal way. I mean, they have a new warp stabilizer plugin in After Effects 5.5. That's a direct response to all the rolling shutter artifacts that come from HDSLR material because of the, the digital imagers. So, knowing how to use those tools, knowing how to counteract those tools on set, knowing which camera rigs give you less warble, those are good, feathers to have in your cap. But I just feel like, for my own personal history, coming from analog days, editing on 3/4-inch deck and cutting film in film school, and then learning digital video with Quadra 950s.
I had one of those.
Video Vision telecasts.
You had to blank the drive every week so that it would be fast enough to handle uncompressed standard def footage.
And you would edit 320 by 240. So I think that there's a level of problem solving that I just find really inspiring. And
it isn't in some ways easier to do that problem solving with generalist apps. So applications that do a lot of different things rather than, I mean, our industry moved very quickly towards specialization where, you know, for 10 years or 15 years, it was about apps that do just one thing and just one thing and people who become very, very specialist. But as it seems like, as you go more and more into this independent process where we don't have those kind of budgets or we don't have that kind of specialty, there's an advantage to having not only having tools that can solve a general set of problems, but have people who can solve a general set of problems.
Yeah, and I think those tools really, you know, the ease of getting in and out of those tools is paramount. Because having a really skilled nuke artist, you know, I mean, those guys, node-based render, all that stuff, those are different languages. But I feel like for me with Premiere, and I've sort of been off in this corner trying to do great things with Premiere, you can do anything. There's no limitation. I've never come across anything where I was like, well, I can't do that. With other applications, they're just not designed that way. So there's the pluses and minuses of having that freedom, right, to solve those problems.
And they're designed to do what they do really, really fast. And so in a big pipeline, in a lot, you know, at a digital domain or an ILM or whatever, those tools make perfect sense. You know, because that's exactly the razor. But as an independent, you know, where there's 8 of us and we got to finish a film, or there's 15 of us that have to finish a film, you kind of want. I know when we pick teams, we're always looking for people who can do green screen, can do match moving, can do editing, can do shooting, like to us, those are, like, we call them super predators. You know, because we need and we train them that way. So that's because they'll solve the problems more effectively because they understand the whole pipeline.
And it's infectious when you have those artists together and they start to see, oh, this is how easy it is. You know, we started a visual effects company with some of the guys who left PLF, Stephen Laws and Sean Cushing. And, you know, all of a sudden we're using Synthize to track things. And it's like, you know, you learn, oh, the guy that writes Synthize is really accessible, and you can, you know, throw shots at him that he'll have. I mean, there's just a wonderful community of those people. And it's like, you know, when I first heard about what Tyler did on the social network, it was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. But yeah, that's awesome.
Right.
You know, and like,
well,
really
people feed off of each other too.
Absolutely.
When you have all these generalists all in the same room, they're constantly teaching each other how to get through those next steps, and before you know it, you've got guys that came into editing and now they're doing motion capture. And a lot of it's because those tools have become a lot less expensive.
So forgive me, but I want to know what Tyler did on the social network.
Oh, wow. That was a leading...
I like it.
It's really impressive.
So tell me about it.
So basically, I created this workflow. We shot the movie on Red, and basically one of the advantages of having Red is, you know, the media is small enough where you can keep it all contained within a couple
of very, very, very big sands.
Depending on how much you actually shot,
right?
You know.
But you have access to it. It's all
upwards
online.
of maybe let's just throw out a number, 30 terabytes. So you have a SAN containing 30 terabytes of red footage. All you have to do is connect to that to some degree, and you have final shots available to you. Yeah. So what I did is I took this mentality that I had on Benjamin Button, where, you know, we wanted to conform everything within house, and we used that time we used this Iridas frame cycler to basically untar a bunch of DPX from LTO tapes, which the native source of that was it was DPX frames, and we had it all on our XSAN, and from there we brought in an EDO into frame cycler, and then it all connected. And I wanted to do the same thing, but the price tag for frame cycler is a little too high, and, you know, I couldn't get the kind of workflow that I wanted out of it. So what I did is I created this workflow where I basically strung out each reel that I was working in as an image sequence, and I chopped it up into individual folders and put those into different folders.
One folder per shot,
one folder per shot, and I brought that into Premiere, and I laid it out as a timeline, and then I connected that using, you know, the dynamic link capability is between Premiere and After Effects, and I brought it into After Effects, and then all of a sudden I had an image sequence of the entire movie separated into individual layers, just stacked in a composition, and I conformed the movie that way. So anytime I needed to do any work on that, like stabilize, paint work, composition, I would just go in, work on that shot individually, hide it, that shot was done. Wow. And I output that as a image sequence to our DI facility, And we did the entire online of our movie.
That's pretty
in-house
amazing.
for-
Wow.
But that's not all.
Next to nothing.
But that's not all?
But that's
He
not
did.
all.
I mean, Tyler, what I love that what you did that I keep bringing up every time we have these conversations because I just think it's so smart.
He's very shy.
Is he?
I'm never on camera. So.
he, you know, I understand that David Fincher is very precise and knows what he wants, and you know, has people around him that give him that, and you know, he wanted the Aaron Sorkin dialogue to be tighter. So Tyler has the whole After Effects composition of the entire film. He can start changing the pace of the film by splicing the frames in half when you have over-the-shoulder shots.
Well, that's not entirely me. That's the editors doing that, and they because they are aware of how easy it is to do.
That's the Academy Award-winning work, right?
Yeah, that's the Academy Award-winning work.
But you need that team to do Academy Award-winning work.
You have to have the tools.
Yeah.
That film was an incredible, like, just went.
Yeah,
from beginning to end.
Amazing.
But basically what we did is we took maybe like the same performance but tightened it by 15 frames. So we put a split in the middle and then kind of like squeezed them together. And because you're able to, you have After Effects right there, you just, well, we use Synthesize to track the data. We just found tracking points, stabilized.
That's amazing.
And, matched them.
Yeah.
I think another interesting avenue, just along the same lines of what Gareth did, which is I joke about the 0-1-2 principle, which is he did a nice piece with 0 crew, 1 actor in 2 days.
Wow.
And that was a piece that Gareth can actually talk about how he integrated stuff and did very rapid work as well.
I'm actually not here, by the way. I recorded this like 2 days ago. Tyler has put me in.
Yeah,
Seemed
it's
like
amazing,
we're talking,
isn't it? And he actually sped you up a little bit, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like the tilt shift effect on your hair.
I sound more butch now, thankfully. Just lowered the pitch of my voice a bit. Yeah, no, I mean, one of the great things, I guess, was, or the thing that changed my whole career was I entered this competition where you have to make a film in 48 hours. In 2 days, and John Landis was the judge, and I love American Werewolf, and I really wanted to get a film in front of him. And I'd got really frustrated because I'd worked my way up directing in television, and you'd be in a situation where you'd have like 50 to 100 people helping you, and suddenly something magical would happen that you hadn't predicted, which is always what you're looking for, a happy accident. And you'd say, quick, let's just move things and get over here. And they'd say, well, we can do that, but it's going to take like half an hour. And we'd have these joking conversations with the producer where you say, so he'd say, why can't we just adapt? And he'd say, well, it's because we're spending too much money, we have too many people, we can't afford to. And you say, so you're telling me that if we spent no money and had no one, we can do anything we want? And he would laugh and go, yeah. And it's like, well, that's how I'm making my next film. And just so happened that this competition came along, and I thought, right, let's do it. And I grabbed an actor, one of these, I just bought an adapter, the 35mm adapter, and stuck on the front of the camera, and spent 2 days, edited it in Premiere, used After Effects, put some effect shots in there and stuff, and I was more proud of those 2 days' work than the last 10 years combined. It just felt such a liberating thing, and it was so exciting, this feeling of, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for, in that you can go make a movie now. There's no one can stop you. If you've got these tools, you can do anything you want. And I showed that short to a production company. The first meeting I went into, they were like, let's make a movie. And 3 months later, we were in Mexico shooting our film. It sounds, I kind of say it about like that, I think, God, that sounds easy, doesn't it?
It takes a lot of talent. It takes a lot of talent. It takes a lot of planning.
But that's the point, is the tools now get out of the way so the talent can shine.
Yeah,
and
because
that's
it really used to be. We used to be in the situation where you needed that big crew. You needed those big cameras. You needed, I mean, to get that kind of look, you were shooting with either, maybe you'd have a DVX 100 that was the Rebel tool before that.
But if you know film history, there have been these inflection points in film history when they were able to get cameras small enough that they could go on location. Movies changed. You had to do everything on a sound stage until the 60s and 70s, and that's when you had this amazing revolution in movies.
It was really to me, I equate this as it's very much the cinema verite reportage movement of the 60s and 70s with Eclair making their 16mm camera, and you could go out and actually like news reporting. Like there was all these really interesting documentaries that were being made by really intelligent Harvard
suddenly you
people.
could.
Right. You could, and then all of a sudden you have these really wonderful personal movies in the 70s that are a reflection of having more immediate access to these tools and feeling comfortable.
And all these great movies.
And it's
do you think the same thing's happening now, or about to?
I think that we're in a moment where you can pick up a camera and make a beautiful image like you've never been able to make before. I don't know if the state of the film industry is in a place to support that radical level of artistry
won't be
in
the film
70s.
industry that does it.
Yeah, it won't. who knows? I mean, we're all sitting up here because we've done unique things and have made some sort of a ripple in some way. But it's hard to say because the whole landscape of digital media hasn't sussed itself out in terms of what makes money and what doesn't make money. And unfortunately, that's what's behind so many things right now.
I mean, when you think of your short films, or not short films, but full length films, are you still looking at like where I really want it to end up as a movie screen, or do you think of it as I just want a lot of people to watch it? I mean,
I think to be honest with you, it's the movie screen, right? This is what I grew up wanting to do. I don't know about you. It's the holy grail. You have a film in the cinema. I've made a movie. You have the badge. Your mum's proud, and it's. And what was very interesting with the journey we went on with our film is there was a lot of conversations. Like we got a theatrical release in the States through Magnolia, and they are trying this new business model of.
They own the theater.
Yeah, they give a film a theater because the problem is you have this window, right? So if you want to do video on demand or give it to iTunes, you've got to wait, I think, 3 months or something after it goes to the theater before you can start doing things like that. So they bought a load of theaters so that they could change the rules. And so what happened is our film actually ended up on iTunes before it had its theatrical release. I think it was the first film to do that or something. It made a lot of money, and there was a lot of conversations where people would say. Like, you have to, as a filmmaker, get over this idea that your film is in the cinema. You know, if you can get over that, your life will be a lot better. That's how the business model works for sort of lower budget movie making. But my response always was, in a weird way, it's like the day that filmmakers get over that desire to be in the cinema is the day you don't really need a distribution company. It's like there's nothing stopping us in the future uploading the films that you make to iTunes yourself. Why would you need a distribution company? Okay, maybe
I think that's a good question.
Yeah, and maybe they can make posters and stuff, but the reality is those posters are seen by everybody on websites. You can make a poster in Photoshop. And
we just had the CEO of
sites.
Funny or Die up here on this set, and that's where you see people like Adam and making. They're filmmakers. They're going to keep making filmmakers. Adam McKay. But making films, but they also appreciate the ability to do these short, simple things on the internet as well. I understand that's nothing like having it on the big screen, but that may be changing.
But it's almost like that the generation, like we grew up, we know what grain is. All of us know what grain is here. There are
film
kids, grain. If I say grain, all of us go, yeah, grain. There will be very shortly a generation of kids who will not know what grain is.
Right.
And I think that generation. The kids that grow up with being validated is playing on YouTube.
Right.
For us, being validated is being on a big screen at a festival, maybe winning an award at a festival, and then you maybe get distribution. I think that new generation may not.
Do you think as independent filmmakers, I mean, one of the things, without being able to create the big effects and without being able to create the big vista shots sometimes with the, do you think it's more challenging to get into the theater because you're now competing with, the reason I go to see a movie now is because it's a visual experience. Like, I'm going to see something because I want to see it in the theater on a big screen. If I don't, today, if Sideways came out, I'd go, I'm going to rent that. I'm going to rent Sideways.
There are a lot of people with big screen TVs and great systems.
I think that's
what I'm saying. I have a 50-inch.
You still want to go to the theater.
No, I only want to go to see. I go to the theater to see stuff
Inception,
see Inception or Rango or something that's going to be a big thing that I don't want to see on a 50-inch. But if it's a story, like if it's a really good story, I'm like, I'm going to get that on Netflix.
Yeah.
Do you think that Netflix now is starting to do their own production?
That was a big deal. That
do you guys see this as a growth market for you as far as building stuff directly for a content distributor like that?
Well, I like, you meet a lot of young filmmakers doing this sort of thing, and it feels like, as of things stand right now today, the model or the route into being a film director for real feels like what you have to do is make a short or make something, stick it on YouTube, Hollywood watches it, you get a phone call, you raced over, and then you go and get attached to a $50 million movie. And that seems like, if you look at the people who have had success through digital rebel filmmaking, that's kind of the route they've gone. And I kind of feel like there's another step that's just over the horizon, which kind of bypasses Hollywood, where you can make a spectacle movie that looks like 50 million, 100 million, but you can make it, on a team of a few guys in their garage type thing, and then you can distribute it potentially yourself.
Well, doesn't digital cinema change that a lot? Because now that it costs at $1,500 a reel to get it to and there's you're competing. You got to make 4,000 reels.
DCPs aren't cheap either.
Right.
That's a gnarly licensing fee.
Right. Well, and that's the key. It's a gnarly licensing fee. So they make sure.
Sorry,
so this is the digital cinema. So if you want to get
the content
DCP
protection.
file. No. When you make a file that needs to go on a server that gets played in a theater, that has that,
the unfortunate
you've got to get a do-re-mi box.
Costs a lot of money.
Correct.
The other thing as well, if you make a film for nothing, like you've done it. You've done the very thing that software like Adobe is designed for. You went and made a film. It cost nothing. It's a feature length. Great. To get that in 3,000 screens, which is the kind of money we're talking about, is the P&A spend on that? I don't know what it is. It's like minimum of 10 million, maybe 30 million. So even if you made it for nothing, even if you gave it for free to the studio, they still have to risk 10 to 30 million dollars to release that movie, and so it's that bit that needs changing.
And I think that what was unfortunate, there was this inflection point. This is like one of the opportunities lost for independent filmmakers, when you could see that we were going to go to digital distribution, and then you could see that if someone had come in and said, we're going to help put all these digital things in, and we're not going to have a license, it's going to be open source or it's going to be whatever it is, it would have changed the movie industry forever. And of course the movie industry got a couple people got real smart, Boeing and a couple other folks got real smart, and they put in this licensing, put in licensed projectors into all of these to make sure that you're still...
There's gatekeepers.
Still a barrier, because otherwise the chaos is I've got something that is going to, I'm releasing my next vehicle for some big artist, and I want to know what's being released that week. And as soon as it becomes, that's the challenge, right? Do you see a way to get into that, or do you think that it's really going to be direct to people's houses, or for an independent filmmaker?
I mean, if the money filtered straight back to the filmmaker, I think everyone would be very happy to go straight to people's houses. So if you can do that in a way where it can finance you to make more films, I think that would be great. I think we're not right there at the moment, but I think we will be. I think give it a few years and that'll be quite common, maybe.
Johnny, when's the Digital Rebels panel?
It's coming up in about an hour. It's going to be about 12 o'clock.
Well, you guys have had your warm-up now. You ready? You feeling good? All right, you're going to go out there. Johnny, thank you for stopping by, and I really appreciate your bringing some great people here for us to hear from.
Glad to have us on.
Yeah, lots of fun. John, now, give me the pronunciation. Loiacono?
Loiacono.
Loiacono.
Good Italian name.
Johnny Loiacono. Oh, yeah, ready. He's from Adobe. What's your title at Adobe?
Senior Vice President of Digital Media.
Oh, well, so you know a little bit about this. Johnny Loiacono. Gareth Edwards, who's a filmmaker. Not The Monsters, A Monsters.
What's The Monsters? No, not Monsters, Inc.
Yeah.
It's not the Pixar movie.
No.
All Monsters versus
Can we
Alien.
see it?
Yeah.
Where can we see it?
Netflix, I think.
All right.
Amazon.
Monsters.
Wherever you see movies, you can see it there.
I want to check it out. That's great. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. From the Bandito brothers, Jacob Rosenberg, really nice to meet you. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate it. And finally, Tyler Nelson, who is a mere associate editor or something.
That's an awesome title.
But seems to know a little bit about workflow and all that. It's nice to meet you all. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, guys.
We really appreciate it. We're going to get set up for Mac Break Weekly as we continue live from the NAB show. Do we have anybody with us in the Mac Break Weekly?
Yes, we do.
Oh, good. Okay, so we're going to get those people up on stage. We're going to let these people go. And we want to thank everybody for being here during our live broadcast from the National Association of Broadcasters show in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're here in the South Hall. If you're at NAB, thank you. Really nice to see you. If you're at NAB, come by and visit us. We have we really outdid ourselves, thanks to Roger Ambrose, our creative director, and Brent Byer, our lighting guy, who made this 3D set.
It's beauteous.
It's just floating. Somebody said it looks like you're floating over the show floor.
It looks so great from when you're way off in the distance.
So pretty. Well,
you look down there.
That's a pretty good example. I mean, it's really a nice shot.
Someone asked me. I was like, "We're at the TWiT, at the TWiT booth," and they're like, "Where is that?" And I'm like, "Where have you been?
Yeah.
How can you miss that?"
Yeah,
We're
pretty happy. I have to say, we've got it. As they said in the chat room, Leo really has a great crew. It is absolutely true. Brent Bye on cameras and lights, Eileen Rivera, who's producing it, Lynn Fu, who coordinated the whole production, Liz Romero, and Burke McQuinn, who drove the truck and set it all up. There we are. There's a great shot of the whole panel. That's fantastic. Where are you getting these shots from? We have cameras everywhere now. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Running the board, the incredible NewTek TriCaster HD 850, Alex Gumpel, who is merely an intern. But I think he's earning himself a job at this point. He's doing a great job. I just really appreciate it. Tony Wang, our editor, who will be taking these, chopping them up into little bits and putting them out as our TWiT specials. You'll be able to see all of our coverage at twit.tv/specials.
How did the walk go?
Walk was really fun. Lisa Bettany and I did a photo walk last night at the Bellagio Fountain. It was just so much fun. All right. Oh, two more before we do. Okay, I do want to talk to Alex, actually. Yeah. Line. Alex Grossman, nice to meet you. Wait a minute.
No.
Nice to meet you. Scott Wilkinson is
I'm
back.
back.
He's back from our Home Theater Geeks.
That's right.
Editor-in-chief of the Ultimate AV magazine and a columnist for Home Theater magazine. And you brought with you Alex Grossman.
No, I didn't. I did.
How are you?
Hey, Alex.
Surprise!
How's it going?
Surprise!
Oh, my
He snuck
God.
up right behind you
He
there.
did sneak up right behind me.
ActiveStorage.com.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How are you, Leo?
It's good to see you.
Good to see you as
we
well.
We're just talking about storage.
It's always a good thing.
What is Active Storage?
What is Active Storage? Well, we're a supplier of storage for media and entertainment, mainly in the production, post-production, and archive for both broadcast and post.
Yes, and you had some big announcements
we
this
did.
week.
Really big announcements,
Tell
actually.
us.
Life's changing. It's all
Do
good.
tell.
So as a storage company, we've always been the infrastructure player for a lot of the big companies.
You do SANs.
Yeah, we do SANs. That's what we do.
Yeah.
We're the SAN people, storage area networks. But we've just recently introduced a server that works as a metadata controller. Here's all the techie stuff, right? We now
Apple did
control
a bad little thing to us because we use on our SAN, we use one of those nice Xserve 1U boxes to control that thing. That's our metadata controller. They stopped making those sons of guns.
Yes. Not that we're bitter.
Fortunately,
But there's please don't be bitter.
Fortunately, there's
Absolutely.
A
So as one door closes, another opens, and we introduced something called Active SAN. And Active SAN is the replacement for the Xserve as the metadata controller and XSANs. And XSAN has been extremely popular, so we're very happy about that.
Naomi Pierce is a good friend, and we just went on the cruise with Naomi and Sal, and I was telling her our woes, and I was saying how sad we were. She said, well, stay tuned.
Naomi's good about that.
Yeah, and so that's really exciting. That's good news.
Yeah.
Now, you're not putting OS 10 on that sucker.
No, actually not. Actually, we're Linux-based, and we use a file system called StoreNext, which is completely compatible with XSAN. And we do our magic sauce on top of that to make it really easy to deploy. So one of the beauties of XSAN is that virtually anybody could get in and build a SAN for media that could scale from 2 users to hundreds. I mean, our customers range from some of the largest broadcasters and post houses in the world, and they were all running on XSAN. And of course, as you said, Apple discontinued the Xserve and stopped shipping them on January 31st. For some reason, we just announced our product on January 31st.
Imagine that.
Well yeah, it's kind of funny.
Well-timed indeed.
But we were actually able to do one step further. So we looked at it and we said, what are the things that people love about XSAN? What are the things that people wish it would do better? And we were able to take Linux under the covers, but hide it, so that people in the media industry don't have to be IT pros.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to take the StoreNext file system and optimize it for an XSAN network, and also make it really easy. So one simple UI sits over the top, a couple minutes, you set the whole thing up, and to us it's actually easier than actually installing XSAN. And it has performance enhancements over what they had with an Xserve.
Oh, good.
So now the process is, I can get my head around it. They're buying storage from you, or they're buying their own storage?
Well, they can do
matter?
either.
Okay.
So we have an advantage. So if they buy storage from us, so let me take you back 1 second here. Is that we started out here because one of the problems that people had in building media SANs, especially with an Apple platform or a mixed platform, when you go open. So if you go with someone like an Avid or a Grass Valley, you have a complete closed proprietary system to a certain extent. Although someone would question what proprietary means in today's world, and me talking about Apple as open is kind of funny to some people, but it really is. We're based on industry standards. So when Apple end of life the Xserve RAID, which is a product that I know very well, we were able to go in there and give them a product that was very similar in look and feel with more capabilities. And so we started with storage, but our idea all along was that we wanted to make the network better. So one of the problems in an XSAN is you didn't have any visibility as to what was really going on. So you could get it running easily, but you couldn't do the diagnostics. So if something happened, and let's face it, we're all in a production deadline environment, and if something happened, you wouldn't know what was happening.
What does that red light mean?
Exactly.
We had that problem, actually.
I've had that problem. I have two
Call
Xserves.
someone, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You
Call someone.
have to call someone. Yeah.
Right. Or that failover thing when you have two Xserves and it just automatically fails over and it goes, you're on controller B, I was just on controller A. And you have no idea what happened. And it's a scary thing, right? We all want to be in control of our lives. So as we built the storage, we built a diagnostics engine into it that we call the statistics engine. So it tells you everything about the storage. But you'd have to go into the storage to actually see it. So what ActiveSAN does is it changes that whole state. We move it up to the server, and we use that diagnostic engine or that state engine inside our storage, and we gather all that information in a very contiguous look, so we can actually look at the whole network. And when something goes wrong anywhere on the SAN, whether it's in the fiber channel switch or in the storage or even at the client, we can tell you what's wrong and what's going to happen to your performance and whether you're going to get your job done and how you fix it. And so if you put our ActiveSAN on top of someone else's storage, you lose some of those capabilities.
Right.
So now we have a view only down to there. But if you do ours end to end, and again, I have to admit I'm a little bit of a selfish guy that I wanted to have all of our stuff. If you do it end to end, you actually get a fantastic look. So we see it as an improvement to the XSAN network.
No, absolutely. And from the install, how techy do you have to be? I mean, you're buying the storage, you're buying the XSAN. How much setup is there to get it really running?
Well, my rule is if an engineer can't set it up, it's perfect. So I give it to my wife, and I go, can you set this up? And if she can, we win. It's really, literally 3 minutes. You have to answer about 10 questions. We give you a list up front. Here's what you need to know: an IP address, the name of your clients, have those little license keys with you, and you're pretty much done.
That's awesome. Alex, it's so great to meet you. Congratulations on the launch.
Well, thank you very much.
Very
I really appreciate it.
ActiveSAN.com if people want to know more.
ActiveStorage.com.
ActiveStorage.com.
And ActiveSAN.
Yeah.
Thanks, Leo.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Yeah, we spent a lot of money on a SAN, and I was told after spending 20 grand, that's not enough.
No,
too little. We
yeah.
didn't spend enough money on a SAN apparently.
Yeah, evidently, we had one in house for a little while, and we were like, yeah, this is great. How much is it? Like $60,000.
It's really expensive. So the reason we need one, and I had to be
convinced. And we didn't understand how to. That was
I had to be convinced, but it's because we do live production. So we're shooting live to tape as we shoot. We're shooting live to tape. We record it out to the SAN. As soon as that show's over, our editors don't have to move stuff around or sneaker net it. They can go on the SAN, the same SAN that we're recording to, because it uses high-speed fiber channel connections. Can get on there and they can edit it immediately. And so they have the videos recorded, and they can edit it all kind of the same time. And multiple people can use it at the same time.
And we need this kind of shared storage because we are in the middle of productions, and you've got 8 artists working on something. And so I don't want 8 copies of something on everybody's machine. You want a single file system that people are simply grabbing the pieces, and when they're done with it, somebody else can pick it up.
We used to. I mean, I used to put everything on a USB key, and we'd carry it upstairs. But we actually. But that's the single most expensive piece of technology in the whole TWiT cottage is a SAN. I mean, it's just it's something you don't think about, but you really do.
But it's what makes everything run.
Without it, we got nothing. And when the SAN goes down, terror.
Now, my question is there any consumer application? It's obviously too expensive for most consumers.
Oh, yeah.
It's not really appropriate for, say, a central server to a house that's going to send media here and there and everywhere.
No, although I have to say, as we get faster in-home networks, it might there might be a time when you have iSCSI and a very fast server running, and you might be very close.
I mean, I have a Mac Mini that's connected to a drive. So I have
the Drobo.
The Drobo. So I have a Mac Mini connected to a Drobo that has a bunch of it has all my media on it, and so all the TVs, iPads, iPhones in the house all connect to one.
The only limiting factor there is you're not putting fiber channel in. You're using gigabit Ethernet.
Yeah. But that's a NAS, right?
That's a NAS, not a SAN.
Not a SAN.
Yep, not a SAN.
Well, the difference is those technologies are starting to blend. I mean, it's
exactly.
just, it's like we say, NASA, all NASA technology comes down and we're using it every day.
Right.
It's exactly the same thing. So we're seeing the technologies that we're working with today get used in the home. I mean, I have a wired home as well. I mean, everything is in a central storage. Sure, I've got a SAN in my house, but not everybody has that. We're all going to be like that. But practical application is interesting because Apple just introduced something called Thunderbolt.
Right.
And that allows you to take
Thunderbolt.
Thunderbolt.
Somebody was asking in the chat room if you had a Mac Mini with Thunderbolt on it, could you use that as a metadata controller?
You really couldn't today, but it will be available at some time to be able to do that. It's coming. Yeah. It's definitely changing. Yeah. The consumer side is blending in. I mean, as consumer equipment gets more robust, we're going to start to see that. For us, though, we look at people like, you want yourself on the air. You can't afford to go down, so everything's completely redundant. And the problem with Thunderbolt is there isn't redundancy. But for the occasional user who wants to edit or plug into a SAN, those capabilities are coming very, very soon. And even more important, we look at the blending of it. We have an app on the iPhone that you can manage your storage with. So when you look at consumers,
that's cool.
everybody has that iPhone app. So we have a 1-to-1, actually it's about a 10-to-1. 10 people who are, every person who buys one of our boxes, 10 other people in the company get the iPhone app.
Right.
And they want to look at it and go, ooh, my storage is good, green lights, life is good.
Thank you, Alex. Who's next? We're going to do one more, and
One
then
more
we're going to
guest.
get Mac Break Weekly on the air here. For DTS, this must be one of yours, Scott Wilkinson.
He is one of my
We're going to bring
guests.
Fred on the stage here and move Alex off. Thank you, Alex, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Say hi to Naomi. Naomi Pierce is married to Sal Segoyan.
Yes.
Who is the great
Sal Segoyan.
The great Apple script and automator guy
Uber
from
automation.
Apple. And Naomi is a publicist who I've known for years and years and years. And she kept saying, "Wait till you hear what Active Storage is doing. It's going to be good. It's going to be."
I was
good.
really glad we had Alex come because I was trying to get my head around what the new.
It's
I was
so
like,
complicated.
Yeah.
It's so complicated. I only barely know a little bit about it because I've had to
Write a
be
check.
schooled in it. I've had to write I wrote the check. That's when you write a check for $30,000, you pay attention to where it's going. Exactly. Let's get our microphone on for Scott Wilkinson because I want to get Scott to introduce our next guest from DTS.
3, 4,
There he
5,
is.
6. There I am. Yes, indeed. I invited Fred Kitson to join us. He's the
Hey, Fred.
CTO, the Chief Technical Officer of DTS, the CTO of DTS. Say that 5 times.
That's in there.
Hey, Fred, welcome.
Thank you, Scott.
We see DTS all the time when we go to the movies.
That's right.
It's all I know though is it's sound.
Well, that's part of the equation. Yeah, we're trying to take sound and help with the digital entertainment experience in general.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I saw at CES that I found so fascinating, and they're showing it here too, is a new algorithm called NeoX, which provides up to 11.1 channels of audio.
Whoa! I thought 7.1 was just coming out.
Well, it is.
11.1.
The pace of technology is
It is
furious,
amazing,
yeah.
isn't it? Yeah. So
So-
what am I going to do with 11 speakers?
Well, actually, what we're trying to do is create the experience of something that is very compelling. So as humans, as we evolved over the years, we're pretty good at pinpointing
Right.
sound sources, particularly in front of us, right? So what we're trying to do is take a normal legacy Blu-ray or 5.1 mix, which of course is done for a plane, and generate from that automatically some of the elevation and width that gives that more immersive environment, and certainly for things like wind noise and things that are envelop you, but also pinpoint sources above you automatically. So we think we're the first in the industry to provide that.
Now that's all being distributed, but how do people capture from that? So if someone wants to
Do you
give
need
you
a 12 mics?
So there's two parts to that. The first is that, again, the 5.1 mix that you already have, which was not designed for 3D, we can take that and generate that height field, which gives you legitimate, almost magical, that height field. So if you can imagine, say, a Pearl Harbor movie that you'd watched before, you watch it again, and this time there's a Japanese Zero above you and things blowing up below you. That's recreated automatically in a half of a hemisphere. So we'll get the front half of that, which we think is the most important.
This is the problem I have with calling surround sound 3D. It's not really. It's in a plane around you, so it's 360 degrees, but it's sort of
something's in
2D.
front and something's in back,
but you don't necessarily
know
something's
what's up or below.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. So this is, I think, the important part of what this technology is doing.
Right, and you can take the second part of it, which will be our next generation, which produces that whole hemisphere. So you clearly are, for games, interactive environments, things behind you, in front of you, etc.
Now the demo includes some music actually mixed in 11.1. I mean, there are many more channels than that in the raw mix. I mean, there are many more.
Well, yeah, you've got
instruments.
lots of instruments.
Lots of instruments.
That's part two, I guess, of the question is. So the first generation is to do the automatic part. Second generation is you put in 3D sound objects. And so that requires an editing tool change, which we have. And you can literally take a trajectory and say, I would like a helicopter to do this. And then that is generated and added to that as well.
Wow.
Is that a capability you have now, or is
Yes.
it? Yeah. Okay.
So so some of it's programmatic and some of it's real.
Yeah, so we base it. I guess the pedestal for all this is, in our case, DTS HD, and that includes, as you know, all the way down to 32 kilobit LBR or something to use for XM radio, all the way up to lossless, studio lossless.
Wow.
So within that equation, you can put in this metadata that will describe these 3D objects.
Now, what kind of authoring system is creating the metadata that describes those objects?
So literally, we try to build on what people are familiar with. So we take our pro audio tool, and take that and allow people that have made a mix in, as you point out, in one plane, and then lift that up. So the UI could be as simple as having a little UI that would allow you to pull the sound up, say, from the right front channel and say, I want that to go up. You could actually sort of mirror the topology of current speakers and make it so that it's intuitive. And then you can have sort of think of it in a volume. So you have an artist that can go and say, I want to be here, and we can create that sound source there.
Now, is it something that you're creating a spec that people would insert into their own application, or is this your application that produces, that sets this all up?
Yeah, so we're using, in our case, yes, we're using the delivery chain that exists now that be upward compatible or backward compatible, if you will. So any authoring tool that's creating DTS, additionally, with this metadata, can now create the height field.
And it's on their side to do that development.
Right.
You expect theaters to? I mean, they just started putting 7.1 systems in. Are they going to?
This was the next question.
Yeah, are they going to be putting in 11.1
Oh my God!
You mean we need more?
When does it stop?
Is it just adding 4 more speakers, or is it a little more complicated than that?
Well, I think what we're trying to do is there are those applications like automotive, where they actually, if you go to some of the higher-end German cars and
they have a lot of speakers.
They have a lot of speakers.
They're in the area of 22 speakers. So
wow.
So we actually have requirements to do that. And in that kind of setting, it's actually pretty easy because it's fixed, it's controlled, and you can create that for a pretty good experience for all the people. Now, when you go to cinema, different companies are creating that, so they're outfitting for that purposes.
Right.
If you look at the home or mobile, then you say, how might this manifest itself?
Yeah, well, maybe sound bars or some sort of
exactly.
digital imaging capability.
Exactly. I think a good way to think of how do I get from here to there would be I probably already have a 5.1 system.
Right.
And so making that assumption one way as well, what if you have one sound bar that is just above your big LCD? So that's the investment you made. Your LCD is typically on a wall.
Right.
There's typically power.
Right.
And there might be an HDMI. So imagine just plug in power, plug in HDMI. The processing is done in the sound bar from the AVR, and that would create virtualized speakers.
Right.
So you would get that hemisphere experience with just one additional component.
So that soundbar would essentially provide the height or the overhead kind of experience.
And that's probably the biggest return on investment. You could also put one in the back, but really it's quite compelling with just one.
I was going to ask, people with 5.1 or now even 7.1 systems in their home, thinking about going to a true 11.1, I mean, what about the spousal acceptance factor?
Or the SAF.
The SAF,
in the business.
I guess I would say a night operation.
Honey, what's that over
Black
the TV?
Ops.
Nothing.
I don't know where that came from. I think it's a sprinkler system.
Yeah.
But it's funny. We do have 2 pictures of, and there tends to be, politically correct, but a bit of a gender bias. You see one version where it's the more technology, the more lights, the more impressive, and the other one just looks like a living room with nothing in it. So there's something in between, right? But yeah, I think this upgrade is pretty doable because typically it's the power and the connection, and that would go fairly straightforward. The 11.1, again, if you already have a legitimate system, say in the corners, in that case it'd be an additional, 3 or 4 feet above that, you'd be putting in another speaker. So you might have to get out the ladder. But at least you'd be in the same sort of sphere as what you're already working with.
What about headphones?
Yeah, that was my next question as well.
So
I'm beating you to the punch here, Scott. You better jump on it.
I know. I just got to jump right in there.
Yeah, well, our agenda really is we'll have some announcements. Certainly, we have quite a few mobile phones that we're already in, for example, and pads, etc. We work. There's the announcement with Intel in terms of notebooks, similar kind of problem.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So. We have sort of 2 versions that address that. One would be something we call Envelo, which really takes when you put on these headphones, it sounds like sound is emanating from basically the center of your brain, which is not a normal situation. So it does
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, we won't go there, but you'd like to be outside your head typically.
Right.
And that's sort of the first agenda. So that's done fairly low computational. So that works on pretty much all devices. We happen to have a second version that is more like NeoX, and you could actually take a mix down from NeoX to produce it. So NeoX can go from 2.0 up to 11.1.
Wow.
So
or backwards the other way.
Yeah, so you can transcode up or down, up mix down. But in that case, it's quite compelling. I'd give you guys a demo
I'd love to
afterwards.
hear it. Yeah.
But no, it's definitely one of those things that you hear and you go, wow, I want to listen to everything that way.
Yeah.
And if you look at something like games, or cinema, then you play a little bit because you want to broaden it a little bit, widen it a little bit for a cinema type, or cinema you might want to have the audio in here, maybe audio, maybe a concert, you widen it out. So those are all variables.
Now, the chat room mentioned Odyssey DSX. Someone in the chat room said they're 11.1, but they're not. They're actually 9.1. So is this just 2 more? Ours go to 11.
Yeah, there's definitely some gamesmanship in there. Typically what we do is, we have 4 on the ceiling. So there's, and we find it's also equally compelling to have a width. So in a normal configuration, if you look at, again, return on investment in terms of the sensation that's generated, we find that you would probably start with 2 on the top. The next 2 would be a width, is widen that out. Because remember,
speakers that are outside of the main front, right, and left.
Right.
But in front of the first surround speakers.
Exactly.
Okay.
And again, you look at humans, we are asymmetrical, and we think we're, again, survival. We're forward-looking. And then you would probably next upgrade would be the top back.
Wow, I can't wait.
I have heard the demo. It's really remarkable.
I can't wait. Will it be branded differently? Will it be DTS Plus or something, or how will we know?
We had Neo 6, which was generally an AVR product, which is pretty standard in the industry, and there was debate around that. And without making a big political statement on that, but we felt that we want to reserve that 3D moniker for something that was legitimate and really comprehensive. So we sort of compromised and just went Neo X.
Okay.
I think you could expect something sort of more like DTS HD on the full version.
Very good. Very nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. I'll have to go over to the booth, Fred, and listen. I'd love to hear this.
Yeah.
Fred Kitson, Dr. Fred Kitson is Executive Vice President and CTO at DTS. Thanks so much for coming by. We really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
We're going to get set up for, I think, are we ready to Mac Break Weekly now, Eileen? Okay, we're running a little bit late because we wanted to get those 2 special guests in before they had to go off and do other things. People are here very busy. We really appreciate the amount of time people are giving us.
You bet.
And it's fun. And thank you for bringing people by, too.
I'm real happy to.
Yeah, it's really, really great. When are we going to see you next, Scott?
You're going to see me next tomorrow. I believe I'm scheduled for 10 to 11.
Okay.
And I've got a couple of guests coming up. There's been a little bit of shuffling going on here.
We've had all our appointments canceled and rescheduled. Every single one of them canceled and rescheduled.
Well, actually, most of mine have made it when they said they were, so that was good. But a couple of them have skipped around a little bit, so I'm doing a little bit of juggling. But I hope to have somebody here from the Open Mobile Video Coalition talking about mobile video. In fact, you know him, John Taylor.
I'm very interested. In fact, we had an assignment from one of our listeners to cover this subject.
To cover mobile video. Yeah. And so I've got the guy, John Taylor, who's a VP at LG. We spoke to him at CES.
I remember John, yeah.
But he's also deeply involved in ATSC, or the Digital TV Standard, as well as the Open Mobile Video Coalition.
This will give you the ability to walk around with a specially designed cell phone or a receiver and watch TV anywhere.
TV anywhere.
Yeah,
exactly
specially
right.
designed for the mobile application. I think that's really interesting. Good.
So I'm looking forward to seeing him tomorrow, and I forget who else we've got. A couple of other interesting guys. So it'll be more fun.
Thank you, Scott.